Namaskar. Welcome to Culture Matters with Kailas, an initiative of Folk Brain. You know, in the Folk Brain, we have initiated a new trend of talking about one book by so many scholars, critics, and we call it Book Mania. So, under the Book Mania, we are going to talk about a translated book. This is called Pied Poji, anthology of translated Maithili poems by Dr. Lalitesh Mishra. What is the USP of this book? This book is a representative of 55 poets who have composed their poets and poetesses who have composed their poems in Maithili. Their representative poems have been translated by one person called Professor Lalitesh Mishra, and it has accepted the acceptance of the readers from all corners of the society. We therefore decided to initiate a panel discussion on this, inviting people from various walks of life, mainly those who are interested in the onion peeling of the literature, culture, and the poetry. So, with this intention, I have initiated this talk. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this program. We have Professor Dev Shankar Naveen from JNU. We have Professor uh, Vidyanand Jha from IIM Kolkata. He's a noted Maithili poet, writer, critic, and also so many things. He has been translated into so many languages, I have heard. And then we have Professor Tanusri Datta. Tanusri Datta teaches English in Netaji Subhas University of Technology, Delhi, and she's also the Dean of Social Sciences. Uh, Professor Manindranath Thakur from JNU is also going to join us. We have Professor Rajesh Kumar Jha. He's a former member of Executive Council, Delhi University, and he was also the member of Maithili Bhojpuri Academy, Delhi government. He knows the pulse of Maithili literature, though does not participate much, but he's a very extensive reader of what others write about Maithili in Maithili. We have Devnath Pathak. Devnath Pathak is an associate professor at South Asian University, Delhi. He teaches sociology, and he is the founder faculty of that of sociology in that university. We have Bhaskarananda Bhaskar. He is with Bhabha Atomic Research Center, Mumbai. Uh, and we have Dr. Lalit Kumar. Dr. Lalit Kumar is a very young, imbibing, and very prolific English, uh, assistant professor of English literature in Delhi University, at Delhi University in Deen Dayal College. Also, Dr. Snigdha Jha, she was teaching at Delhi University, now at MIT Patna. Uh, And we have Anubhav Anand. Anubhav Anand is a noted English writer and an engineer by profession. We have Jalaj Kumar. So this way, the team is there. So now, without delaying the program, may I request the author, the translator, Professor Lalitesh Mishra, to give a small summary of his plan, how he has managed to uh, identify the name of 55 poets and poetesses, their poems, and what is the total schema of it, this translation work. So, with this request, may I request Professor Lalitesh Mishra to give that brief summary. Please.
Thank you all. I actually fumble for words how to express my sense of gratitude to the founder of Folk Brain and the members in this panel who are here to discuss the Pied Poezy, an anthology of translated Maithili poems. In fact, I was seized with the problem that despite the fact that Maithili has been included in the 8th schedule of Indian Constitution, so far no anthology of translated Maithili poems was available so that the world could be apprised of the beauty of Maithili poetry. So this was the reason which ignited me to have an anthology, and particularly in wake of the fact that one of my friends who is the former director of Doordarshan, as well as a publishing house, important reputed publishing house like Macmillan Book Rivers, they requested me to have an anthology of translated Maithili poems in English so that it could be forwarded to be included in the Asian studies of the Commonwealth countries syllabus. So, keeping this point in my mind, I decided to make a representative uh, anthology of Maithili poet and poetesses. But my problem was there that Maithili had a large galaxy of poets, and I won't call particularly those poets who have not been able to be accommodated in this anthology, that their poetry was dross or marginal. They were all important. But my inkling was to accommodate only such poets or poetesses whose poetic works reflected the contemporary ethos and which could be equated with the sensibility or the kind of poetry that was being written, composed in other languages of India as well as in the Western nations. So it could be if they have any tendencies or any quality to be kept at par with those collections in our country or outside. So that anthology should have the same kind of nature and which could draw appreciation from all far and wide. So that was the one point. And the second point was that there are two kinds of tendencies which were noticeable in modern Maithili poetry. One was the phase of the pre-independence era. During that period, there was a certain kind of gleefulness among the poets and poetesses because they thought that after gaining independence, entire scene of Maithili literature will undergo a kind of change. But what happened that even when India gained independence, the situation remained as it was during the colonial rule. But post-independence period, the gleefulness was absent. And disenchantment, loss of faith in religion, complexities of life, debasement of human values, these were the core points that they started delineating and attacking the established traditional values. So, this kind of thing, this kind of change that I could observe, I felt that it should be put before the readers, particularly those who are non Maithili speaking, like Marathi, Uriya, Bengali, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, so that the beauty, the aesthetic beauty of Maithili poetry could be ascertained, could be realized, could be appreciated. So these were the cardinal points that I had in my mind while I set out for bringing out this anthology. I would say finally that Maithili poetry, the quintessence of Maithili poetry is as good and comparable with any Western literature which has the significance and importance even today. So, with this point in my mind, I brought out this anthology. I am not sure if it would be really found worth reading, worth appreciating. But then I can say that this has been probably the first ever attempt to uh, complete an anthology which combines as many as 55 poets and poetesses. Although I do not fail to admit that there have been some translations in Maithili, translations in English drawn from Maithili literature, but they have been individual centric and has not been as much popular with the readers as they should have been. Otherwise, Maithili had been by now quite popular among the readers far and wide. But even today, in some sections, there is still a doubt that whether Maithili is a literature or anything else or a slang. So these were the problems that Maithili poetry or Maithili literature as a whole faced. So in view of those points, I decided to bring out this anthology comprising the representative poems of as many as 55 poets and poetesses, and they are all now before you. And I am happy that for the first time, a panel discussion is about to take place now from the platform of the folk brain. I think that all those participants, the panel members who are present here, they are erudite person, and they will really, after having gone through this anthology, will be in a position to tell what are the merits or demerits and whether it could be considered as a substantial effort to bring Maithili to the focus, and it could be a helpmate to those readers who were not at all acquainted with the kind of Maithili poetry. They would probably find themselves in a comfortable position to understand the aesthetic beauty and the sensibility that have gone through the poems that are collected in this anthology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, may I request Bhaskara Raja Bhaskar to, because he has already reviewed this book and he has deep interest in English literature as well as in Maithili. So, I am requesting Mr. Bhaskar to speak about this.
Thank you so much for inviting me to such a wonderful program focused on pied poesy. And actually, I feel honored and delighted in the company of such a brilliant scholars across the country. And as far as my opinion regarding this book is concerned, I must contend that this is the most cherishable achievement of Maithili literature as far as translation in Maithili is concerned. So this book has to be held as it has to be treasured because it caters to the needs of all the international readers who want to grasp, in a nutshell, the the essence of Maithili contemporary poetry writing. And Sir Dr. Lalitesh sir, being the translator, has done a great justice to the book. I feel very delighted that I have gone through the entire book and tried to grasp the layers, different layers of meanings underlying in each and every poem showcased in the anthology. What I felt that actually in his forward, he has written so many things that the readers can understand what is the purpose, what is the objective, and why these poets have been selected because the translation is most challenging job for anyone, whether it is academically sound or non-academically expert, whether the translator is professional or non-professional. One has to work hard first for the selection of the poems, for the selection of the poets, because you have to think of such thematically sound, such the poets who have the undercurrent of contemporarity in the writings. And in Maithili, the first great job I am very happy with, that Dr. Lalitesh sir has singled out the forerunner of modernism in Maithili, Kavivar Chanda Jha. So he has started his transcreational journey with the forerunner of modernism of Maithili, Chanda Jha, and then he has just gone down, just covering all the important representative poets, so to say, up to Kamini, the strongest feminine voice. So this is the second thing that I liked very much. Then then one there are certain shortcomings too that I will pinpoint later on, because just only speaking of a good thing of the book will not do the justice. We have to be very much careful about the shortcomings, so that those shortcomings, though that lacuna can be resolved later in the second edition. So I would suggest also. Now, as I have already pointed out, the translation is a very challenging job, particularly when it comes to the translation of poetry. It assumes a very bigger, larger complexity of the problem. It poses a big problem for the writer, for the translator. And so second thing, because translation, you can translate anything. You can translate whatever, you can do that. But when it comes to the translation, literary translation, then one has to be very much careful, very much serious about that. So I think Dr. Lalitesh Misra, the translator, has going through the process of selection, filtration, then being the judgmental, then singling out the important works of art that that contain the elements, the modern, the contemporary elements in the writings. They have done that like that. Now, there are so many allegations also that poetry cannot be translation, whether it is Roman Jacobson, Dryden, Samuel Johnson. They all have discarded the translator not to translate the poetry, because poetry cannot be translated. Poetry is a condensed form. If you translate, then you have to be poet by yourself. If if you want to translate anything, you have to be a man of poetic temperament. Then only you can, because the proto text and the meta text, these two texts have got their own originality. They some elements, the different elements they have, and you have to have a strong command all both the languages in terms of linguistic complexity, variety. Then you have to understand the nuances of the different expressions underlying in both the languages, in the texture of both the languages. So unless you have a great immaculate command over two languages, the target language and the source language, you cannot do that. But since in with reference with a special reference to this book, I must proclaim that since Dr. Lalitesh Mitra himself, a professor, a linguist, multilinguist, so he alone can do justice to the book, because he knows the nuances of Maithili as well as the nuances of English. He has he has great insight into the texture of English as well as the texture of Maithili. Lexical meaning is there, referential meaning is there, then connotational meaning is there, denotational meaning is there. Depending on the social context, you have to find out. You have to explore the different meanings. Then only you can do the translation. And I think, because I think from beginning to the end, from alpha to, from the start to finish. He has maintained and sustained the essence of, contemporary writings in Maithili literature, and actually he has successfully retained or transferred the soul, the essence of Maithili poetry into the English language. And I think the international readers of different languages, different languages can understand very well what is it all about. Because now coming to the problem, because Maithili literature, particularly at this juncture, actually it is undergoing a transitional phase. Mathili, because Mathili, however excellent poetic writing is there, unless it is translated into different languages for the different for the international readers, for the world readers, the beauty of Maithili poetry cannot be perceived by the people. So for that, you have to come into the international arena with the weapons of, the translation. So, and unless you translate your own literary beauty for for the world's eye cannot perceive the aesthetics of Maithili. And for that, we have to come forward, just like Dr. Lalitesh Mitra has come forward. We have to come forward and we have to reproduce, to transcreate the meta text of Maithili literature, and just let the world decide how standard writing is there in Maithili. Because now, sir has in the opening remarks, Dr. Lalitesh Mishra has very candidly confessed that in that Maithili literature right now lacks the pool of translators. They don't have anything like anthology. This is, I think, this is the first anthology he has talked about two terms. The first, individual centric. Earlier also, Sahitya Akademi has published one anthology of poems focused mainly on one poet, that is Amarji, Murari Madhusudan Thakur. I must name him. But that is individual centric. And this is, the contemporary encompassing all the important representative poets of Maithili literature. He has come up with a beautiful message, and it gives a message also. It is the result of painstaking efforts. I have pointed out in my exegesis also, that it is the painstaking. It is the result of the painstaking efforts by Dr. Mishra alone, because with the money, with the effort, by his own, he has produced this book. Just like him, that there are so many, the university academics are there. They have to come forward. Like Dr. Lalit Kumar is here also. He is also coming up. I'm very happy, and I would like to crack the news also through this podium, that Dr. Lalit Kumar is also coming up with a beautiful translation of Kanyadan in English. It has to be appreciated by one and all. Tanusuri Chaudhary is there. She has also, some years back, she has come up with a very beautiful translation of short stories. And right now also, she has translated Gurunath Jha's one very reputed drama.
Thank you, sir.
Kanyapura. She is coming up with that, like that also. So it has to be appreciated. Then
Please,
last time
please
also,
conclude. Please conclude.
last time, okay. So she just through this podium, just I wanted to share that some work is being done also. And as far as this book is concerned, it is really a great achievement for all of us. We have to release it, and then we have to. And as far as the translation, then I will later on discuss the translation and the skills that he has adopted in the production of this book later on, because the rest of, because so many Raya speakers are there also. So what I had in my mind, I just poured out in whatever way, whether it is appeasing or not. So just I will, rest of the things I will pinpoint later on. Thank you so much. This is the first.
Thank you, Bhaskar. We have to see that there are so many speakers and everybody should get the opportunity to talk about the book. And I'm not going to talk about the speaker and their background. This I have already included. In this way, I am saving the time. So now, without wasting my time, I just want to request Professor Tanusri Chaudhary, who is a translator, who is a poet, and she has been doing good work. So I will tell her to uh, say something about this. Professor Tanusri Chaudhary.
Thank you so much, Kailash ji. And a namaskar, a warm namaskar to everyone here. Uh, I would like to thank Lalitesh ji for this particular anthology that he has published. He has worked at it, and I think it needs wider audience and a wider public. Many of us right now in these days, we speak the language because we have been trained, we grew up in that particular language, and we have learned it from our parents. Unfortunately, I might say that because of the working conditions, or there is not enough for me to talk about why my children are not able to speak Methli. Howsoever, it may be pointed out that my daughters do understand Methli, of course. Talking about others, people who hear us talking Methli, the first comment that people make is how sweet a language it is. And I think that sweetness has been conveyed through the poems here. Uh, Obviously, Lalitesh ji has written in his foreword that this is talking about the newer generation. It is talking about the expressions of the newer generation. And what does the newer generation have to say? So that entire, there were quite a few poems over there, and with the paucity of time, I could not devote so much of time to all the individual poems. But yes, depending on what my forte is and what I could look out for, were a few things. Yes, of course, um it is a pied poesy. It is a collection of all shades of life, perhaps. It is talking about dominance. It is talking about subordination. It is talking about uh, loss of identity. It is talking about distraughtness. People are at a loss. It has a certain nihilism towards life, a void in life which is being portrayed here. But nevertheless, it is a complete book in the sense that whatever we as speakers of the language feel has not come to the public as such, because not many people would be able to see to read and understand Mathli as we as native speakers do. And it has been translated very well in the sense that it does portray the generation, it does portray the speakers of the language, it does portray the way we speak and the way we feel about certain things. Now, we might speak it, but we might also need to express it. So, the expressions over there were delightful to go through. And since I'm also a translator, I know it must have taken a lot of time for the author to translate, to keep living with it. You don't forget the work that you're doing, because there are certain questions, there are certain parts which you are never satisfied with. And I do know that Lalitesh ji must have encountered the same problems. And I myself, if I talk about my translations, I never think that I did a perfect job. There are many things that I still could have done better. So that is as a translator. But yes, he has represented a rainbow of colors. The most important color, though it is called, I am naming it as variegated colors and all, but what comes out is a reflection of English literature. Without fail, the first poem that I really liked, and I think it echoes, is William Yeats's poem, and which brings to my mind this poem called "A Coat Draped in in a Hanger." This particular poem reminds me so much of Yeats. And the poem, if you go through it, when you talk about the Sailing to Byzantium by W.B. Yeats, he talks about an aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick, unless soul clap its hands and sing. and louder thing for every tatter in its mortal dress. It reminds me so much of W.B. Yeats. It talks so much about the quotes hanging over there. It is kind of sounding the board and finding out if there are people who can listen to us, people who can feel for us, the ethos that we have, the cultural beliefs that we have, that seem to these seem to disappear with time. Maybe because of negligence. There might be several reasons, but then yes, of course, it is reminding you of a tattered stick of honor. So that is what is the first thing that came to my mind, talking about the momentariness of life. I mean, you tend to become philosophical because when you read these poems, you can see life, you can see how it is, you can see the generation divide, and how one generation fails to see the lapse from the other part. So the author tends to become slightly pessimistic, and towards the end, he says to be oblivious over a cup of tea. So he wants to become, go behind the curtain. Nobody can see him. Perhaps we can, feel that, and for readers worldwide, they can also see that speakers of Maithili and composers in Maithili also do feel the same way. It takes me on. If I read some other poems, and it took me to nobody else but the Maharathi of English literature, the poet, nobody else but T.S. Eliot. Here I am, an old man, in a dry month. And then he continues to say, a dull head among windy spaces. It speaks a lot about what this generation is undergoing. The fear, uh, the wiredness that one feels from inside, the state of affairs that it is, the loss of cultural identity. So everything has been portrayed so well here in a number of poems. I have noted down the pages, and it talks basically about the state that we are living in today. So it talks about the failure, perhaps. It talks about the younger generation. That is one poem by Somadev, which talks about how the womb got ruptured, 12 baby crabs made its exit fizzing. So nothing coming out concrete as such. Then there is also a talk about uh, identity. So there is a loss, perhaps, a loss of people recognizing you. One poem by Sri Mahaprakash, which talks about a face amid face crowd. So you yearn to make an identity, but you fail to. So you want to be recognized, but that recognition is not here. It's not there. And another poem that I felt was very, very lost existence. While I was born, my country was under foreign yoke, and an entry of my name was made in a barbarian's register. I wonder what the barbarian means here. But yes, again, the same question of identity being raised here, the kind of recognition that one would want, but it is actually not happening over here. That was one. Another poem that I wanted to talk about here in short would be this particular poem by Kedar Kananji, which is a word. Something will remain invisible, which will not be discerned. Some will stand untouched and will not be meddled. So there are things that are remaining over there. Things have to be transformed. Things have to change. Yet it is all taking time. So we are in a kind of flow, and things are not happening the way that we should have. All through the poems that I talked about just now reminded me so much of T.S. Eliot, in which he says, "In the room, women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. So, what are we trying to do? Who are we trying to remind? What are we trying to copy? What kind of a disguise have we made? What kind of a face are we trying to show to the public?" So, we do symbolize, we do see parallels in literature. And I think that is something that needs to be recognized, to be understood by people all over, speakers of all other languages, that we do also have the same feelings, the same fear that you might lose and we might be forgotten. The age-old philosophy of living through a life which has not been fruitful perhaps and coming to an end, not getting recognition, the loss of identity. You know, one would rather be a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. And with this, I think I would like to come to an end to what I have been speaking today with some very good words, some very good lines by T.S. Eliot, which says, I have measured out my life with coffee spoons. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Very lucid and very conclusive statements you have made about his book and about his creative thing. May I now request Anubhav Anand? You know, uh, people like Anubhav Anand should speak out because he is a son of a Maithil, lives away from Mithila, does not have great connection with his mother tongue. So the translation would initiate a sense of belonging with his culture for him. So now I request Anubhav Anand to talk about the book. He has read the poems and read the books completely, and he was telling me that he is very impressed with the style and format of the book. So please, Anubhav Anand.
Uh, Thank you, sir. Thank you, Kailash, sir, for giving me this opportunity. I have heard some points from Sri ma'am and Bhaskar sir, and they were really, I can see how the view of the points, can be seen from some person to person, and also I want to congratulate Dr. Mishra sir for giving this out in a very beautiful way. I want to uh, point out that he has selected these poems in a very diligent way, and choosing these poems from these masterpieces poems from these po- poets must have been very challenging for him, because he had to be very selective, and how and which poets to select, which poems to select. And I just want to say that I can see now, because I have read these poems for a past couple of days, and I lost the count of the contents, I lost the count of the poems, in fact. And needed an exposure which it deserves. And that's the thing that we can say, because we want to show the world, how the value of these contents, and we want to make these alive across all the platforms, and we want to impart to the world how massive poets think, how they imagine, and how they create masterpiece in their own unique way. Because various poems, which are in this book, has touched several issues, has connected various subjects from our daily lives. That can connect to the orthodox beliefs and the generic concerns. And I want to say that these can only be done by the massive poets, and no poets, from other than them, because they because that how they have seen and experienced, and they have wrote on the paper, like some of the poems, like vulture is squatted on house. That was very generic concern that they can, that is in our Mithila region only. And some of the subjects of the poems like immigration, young generation. I mean, these poems has a subject which I can say that it's very universal, and no poems or no any writer in terms of article or stories can uh, imbibe them, because that has a very generic concern. And secondly, I want to uh, point something on the translation, because translation is a very challenging work, and when any person is translating, uh, he wants to create the same impact of that language to the language he is translating, and without changing the idea and the theme of the content. And I can say that Dr. Mishra sir has done a very beautiful work in those region, because he has chosen the right words which was needed. He has chosen the right sentences, right stanzas, and that was very crucial when he might have been doing that work, because uh, you know uh, uh, doing that for all those 55 poems, he must have taken a lot of time, because sometimes when you are translating, you can think of a very some of the words you cannot be satisfied with, and you can see that, okay, I can change this stanza and create some other options which can work for at that time. So I think that must have taken a lot of work from him, and he has done very beautifully. And secondly, on the same very note of the translation, I want to say that translation that we say that translation requires a grasp of any language, and like from it's like he has done from Mathli to English. And so that creates a question that, can any other person who has a very good grasp of Mathli and as well as English, can all those person can do the translation work that he has done? Because I mean, if they has a very good grasp of both these languages, and the answer to that question is critically no, because I want to point out the very fact that translation, that it's the fact that translation requires the grasp of the languages from and to of the languages that you are translating. But then again, it also requires the grasp of the emotion and the feeling from and the sensation that you are translating. Dr. Misra must have read those poems in Mathili, then he has registered those poems, and he has registered the emotions that was in those poems before he had started translating, and that cannot be done by every other person on earth. You have to be very particular about it. You have to register those emotions in your mind, and you have to work it in your way, and that is very critical and very challenging, and that he has done a very wonderful job in that section. And these poems, I kept reading this, and each and the pages when I and every pages that I turned, I was very impressed by the work that he has done. And I think on that note, I really want to congratulate once again, to Dr. Mishra sir, and thank you so much, for giving this book a lot of exposure. These poems, a lot of exposure that was needed. And I had a very a generous suggestion on this, that I think that a lot of Mathli poets and poems might be needing, I mean, who are not included this, and it can, and when, whenever you get the time, then you can create a sequel to this part process, and I think it can also work out for them as well, because we really want to show the world how the Mathli poets think and what they write, and that is very crucial for them and for the world, because the readers ought to know how they care, how we think. So that is very imperative in its own way. So with that note, I really want to end this. And thank you very much for giving for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Anubhav, for sharing your thought on this. You know, why I invited an engineer to talk about on these issues? Because you know the one community which has been seriously engaged in the art of translation today is the engineering community, and they are doing wonderful job in the entire system of translation. Professor Dev Shankar Naveen will confirm my statement. And when the engineers come, you know, translation is you know, a complete act of four things: wisdom, technology, technique, and creativity. So, you know, technique and technology, these two things are coming from the scholars, from the engineers. Because on your computer set, they can give you 20 dictionary, and if you have any problem, you can check from this dictionary, from this dictionary, from that dictionary, from that dictionary, and they can give you, like, for one complete stanza, they can give you the parallel translation, and they can give you the, you know, the complete mathematical calculation that this portion of translation has been accepted by 91% readers, 75% readers, and this kind of thing. So, you know, the need of an engineer to understand the total, you know, the activities of translation is very, very essential, and that has been very well reflected in the statement of Anwar. Thank you, Anwar, and God bless you. Now, we are going to invite a very young and a very dynamic, you know, assistant professor from Delhi University, Mr. Dr. Lalit Kumar. Lalit, are you around? Yeah. So I would now request Dr. Lalit Kumar to have his opinion. We know about him. He's a very young, prolific. He's a Maithili speaking person. He has recently translation which is going to come in a month or two, the Kanyadan or some book of Hari Mohan Jha. So with this, now Dr. Lalit. ललित जी आप सुन पा रहे हैं? हेलो ललित, I think he has some problem.
दूसरे को बुला लीजिए कैलाश जी, तब तक लगता है उनको कनेक्टिविटी में कोई तत्काल प्रॉब्लम आ गया है, तो दूसरे आ जाएं इनको.
डॉक्टर प्रोफेसर राजेश, आर यू अराउंड? प्रोफेसर राजेश, प्रोफेसर राजेश.
जी सर.
प्रोफेसर राजेश.
Thank you.
Professor, I shared the PDF format of the book with Professor Rajesh, and today he rang me saying, Bhaiya, I have read it, and it's a wonderful book, and it is so lucidly translated. I have read each and every page of it. I am now an informed reader. This was the remark that I got from Rajesh, and I felt very, very proud of him. So, Professor Rajesh, please.
Respected Ms. Kailash Misra ji and respected author Professor Lalitesh Misra ji and respected panel members. Yesterday, actually, when I received the poster, I thought of tweeting about it because I was excited about this program. And I wanted to give some kind of distinct identity to this program. So I wrote one line in Maithili and one line in English. So I thought, how should I describe this panel? And I wrote the word Jhamatgar panel. And one of my senior faculty from Odisha wrote back to me saying that I really liked the Mathli word which you have used. So this panel, so esteemed members of the panel, and we should be more confident in using Mathili because if we'll use more, the people will be uh, listening us, and they will be also trying to understand our language. That's the now I'm realizing it. I congratulate the author and translator of this anthology, Pi Poesy, which the title justifies because the collection of poem is very wide ranging and very variegated, diversity of the issues which is coming up through the poems like Majesty of the Nature, and ranging from there, the real concerns of the youth, real concerns of the women, and the working class people. All of them are coming up in this anthology, and for this I must congratulate, and I can realize because as a those who are in the business of writing and doing the academic work, they can understand the kind of pain through which Professor Misra might have gone, especially with the kind of academic responsibility, administrative responsibilities he has in the university, because in the universities most of the administrative responsibilities come without much support of the office, so a lot of time goes to the administrative work with your personal effort. So I really appreciate your work, sir, the extensive and very insightful work you have produced. And but I would like to start with my disagreement with your two observations, one which you have made here and one which you have made in the introduction of this anthology. First, merit and demerits. For me, like you have set such a high mark for it is a first anthology of translated Mathli poems, as you have said. Uh, Sir, this is going to set a very high benchmark for the those who are going to make such kind of efforts in the future. So, not the demerits, but this will, I think, uh, this will instigate and this will motivate the others also to follow you. Another is you have written somewhere that you were impelled to bring out this anthology for non-Mathili speaking world. Sir, even many of us like who can speak Mathili, but we are very lazy in exploring the Mathili literature, Mathili poems, and we can be more categorized as a non-literary Mathili speaking people. So it is also a kind of bringing them into the literary world of Mathili, and there also I must commend and I recommend all the people, those who are Mathili speaking or non-Mathili speaking, to go through the very high quality works of 55 poets. Sir, you have said that you have arranged them in chronological order, and at the same time, wherever you have used the regional words, you have explained them. So, how meticulous your approach has been in this whole work, that is that is very much visible. But one suggestion, very small suggestion, I would like to make from the point of view of the text context relationship. In the last of the book, you have given a very brief bio sketch of the poets. That is very helpful. But at the same time, uh, if something can be informed about when those poems were written, I think that will be better for the readers. So in the next edition, you can, if you can add that one, that will be that is my request to you. Certainly, as you have said that you have tried to showcase the post-independence and post-colonial poetic tendency, and most of the writers have been taken from 21st century writers. They are doing the work in the 21st century, and they are coming up with the concerns. And as a translator, I feel translators have the challenges of double filtration, because when you write in the regional languages, your sensibilities and your symbolics and your use of language is such that you have a strong rooting in the regional context, but you have to take it to the another linguistic world. At the same time, the global languages like English, they come with certain agenda. So how to filter those agenda to the regional readers. So this challenge of double filtration, I can tell you have selected the poets and the poems in such a way that it introduces the readers to the universal sensibilities, universal concerns which our present world is facing, like unequal distribution of the power, and ecological challenges, situation of women, and so very well. I can say the selection is very superb. Selection of the poems and the poets, but certainly as a translator, you have to pick up from the basket of the poets which is available to you. And being trained in the political science, and especially in the empirical aspect of the political research, I could not resist my temptation to look it from that point of view. Out of 55 poets, the distribution, it reflects not on your work, but it reflects on which all of us has to think that in terms of the challenge which the Mithila's creative world is facing. जो मिथिला के रचना संसार छे, ओकरा लऽ के जे चुनौती छे, ओकरा हमरा सबके बहुत गंभीर रूप से विचार करे के जरूरत छे। कियाक त अगर अहाँ 55 पोएट्स के देखियो, around which I have done on the basis of on the basis of the title and all, around 30 poets are from the upper caste. So it's a matter of concern that whether the people from it is wanting from the viewpoint of socially representative, whether Mithila Rachna Sansar creative world is socially representative or not. Secondly, out of 55 poets, only around 12 poets are women poets. I am not trying to the work they have done when I have focused on their work. I will elaborate on that. Their women poetics is also of the very excellent quality. It is a kind of new revelation to the people like me who has been very new to this creative aspect of Maithili poems. The only thing is that this, skewed distribution in favor of male poets, or in favor of upper caste poets, is reflective of our society on which we need to think about how to make our language and its creative world more democratic and more inclusive. And why I'm saying it, if you see in Darbhanga and Madhubani, you see the sex ratio. Sex ratio is like in 2001, it was in Madhubani, the sex ratio was 942, and in 2000, in
Lalda,
in in 2011 it was 926. So it is declining
long
sex
time
ratio.
long.
Darbhanga, it was 914 in 2001. In 2011, it was 911. Likewise, if you see the male
Long
female literacy, the gap is very wide. Like in Supol, I can give you the data, like 52.26% is the male in the rural areas of the Supol. 52% is male literacy, whereas 19% is the female literacy. Same is the other districts, whether you take Darbhanga, you take Madhubani, you take Samastipur, Bhagalpur, all the areas have very skewed, very unequal literacy rate for men and women. So from that point of view, I can understand your constraint of selecting the poets, but it's a matter of concern for all the people, those who are working in the area of Mathili language. They must think about it, how to make it more inclusive and more democratic. As far as values are concerned, as far as the kind of concerns they want to raise, that is, there is no, I can't say that there is any compromise or there is any, they are bang on the target. Like one poem I would like to point out is Raj Kamal Chaudhary's, which is an exception because I mainly focused on women poets who have been selected in this anthology, who writes that in the poem titled Vidyapati's Impact and Mithila's Women. And he rightly says that in the darkness of Kohbar, consecrated place, unmoved, Mithila's women remain all the same as they were. There is no change in the 21st century also. He is writing about, and as we have seen from the data, that how unequal society is for the women. And in the field of literary criticism, like women poetics, there are 12 women poets. Their work is excellent. They are highlighting in their own way the sufferings of women, the yearnings of women. They are highlighting the sense of deprivation, how the patriarchal society is approaching and looking at them. All these things are there. There is a kind of agenda also, the kind of you can say the kind of action which they wish to take. So women poetics has to be seen from two aspects. One is symbolism, because the languages are they evolved in a patriarchal framework, and the literary critic like Juliana Kristeva, they say that you have to look at women poetics from the perspective of the semiotic also. Like you have to see the maternal rhythm within the poems, the kind of thing which they want to convey, which a prima facie a word which has carries the symbols which evolved in within the patriarchal framework, has to be looked from the point of view of from the women sufferings, women agony. So the poems which were written by women, they have to be seen as an expression of resistance. And our selected poets, in this anthology that they reflect, and even Sumitra Nandan Pant, he said that Biyogi hoga pehla kavi nikla hoga, or Faiz Ahmad Faiz also said that मेरे दर्द को जो जवाब मिले, मेरे दर्द को जो जवाब मिले, मुझे अपना नामो निशा मिले. So you can see the women poetess in this anthology. They are coming with, the who are the worst sufferers of migration. One poem is on the migration from Mithila to Punjab, where it has been said that where it is said that whatever developments takes place in Punjab, the tears rolls down in Mithila. And like Mahadevi Verma, why I am saying it's a very quality work, because even Mahadevi Verma says that कौन भय की बात पूछता क्यों इतनी रात. Same way, the women who is suffering the pain of migration of her father or her husband, she also is spending sleepless and restless night, and says that do not know when will this darkness and its agonizing have will come to a conclusion, and when will there be track of down. Similarly, so they are trying to war the worst, like women are derided that they were responsible for the wars which was inflicted from time to time, but it is rightly pointed out by the poet that it is not us, it is the decision was taken by the head of the family. You takes all, and you are self-appointed, self-proclaimed, and you take all the decisions. So, and another thing, from where the origin of the poems takes place, it comes from a sense of deprivation. It comes from the distance, and in the whole process of this creativity, you try to convey the message using many symbols. Like one of the poem is sea, where the poetess says that everyone looks at the beauty of the sea but doesn't appreciate the pain which is inside the sea. And Mahadevi Verma also in the similar vein, when she says that बादल के लिए लोग किच कहे छथिन कि मैं नीर भरी दुख की बदली, विस्तृत नभ का कोना कोना, मेरा न कभी अपना होना. So the poetesses of Maithili literature, they have come out with very excellent work, which, and in one of the poems, it is not only about that they are saying they are only presenting the facts. There is a kind of yearning for social change also. They want to change, like in one of the poems, I think I'm just forgetting the name. One of the poetesses says that we should tear away, we should destroy the constitution written by you, means those who have been written by the male dominant society. So there is a kind of, they castigate the concept of Lakshman Rekha. They said Lakshman Rekha is used to subjugate the women, and we need to question. in one of the poems, Neck Deep, where uh, uh, in Neck Deep, in the first instance, you may feel that it is making a very, conciliatory note. Tone is very subdued, but you see the kind of yearning this poem makes in a very subtle way. Like it questions, like you should question the questioning of the significance of the women. Those who question, this must be questioned. And it says that, it talks about the immersion in the relationship. It doesn't, it goes against the unequal world. In another poem where a poetess says that in man-woman relationship, the love is more important rather than the pomp and show. And she tries to illustrate with the, examples of Mahatma Gandhi and Mother Teresa. So, thank you, Professor Lalitesh Misra ji, and thank you, Kailash Misra ji, because it was a gentle and at the same time the commanding nudge from him that he. Otherwise, I was very much reluctant to. I feel I am outsider to this literary talk, but thank you for giving me this opportunity and looking at the work. And but at the same time, we must understand what the message is coming out. Modernity is yet to arrive to our society, and we all must, as Plato said, that we must. Politics is all about how you make the society ideal, how you make the state ideal. So I think this is this aspect of message we should carry forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh, for your wonderful presentation. Professor Lalitesh Misra will answer to your queries that you have created. But I just want to tell you one thing. You have to understand the evolution of Maithili literature. And you have to understand the Maithili literature as a student of sociology. If you see the evolution of, I was working with the UNESCO for a project called Village India, and we have studied two villages from Mithila, Saurat and Sarsapai. These two villages are known as Scholasticians village of scholars. When we went deep down to the village, started collecting data, and my scholar came to me saying that, sir, यहाँ तो महिलाएं 86% इलिटरेट है, मेल जो है वो 67% इलिटरेट है, इसको आप स्कॉलास्टिशियन विलेज क्यों कह रहे हैं? The reason was only a few Brahmins family were allowed to go for the higher study, and for their fulfillment they all were the serving community. So that was the trend. So when you try to analyze the evolution of Maithili literature, you will come to know that the others play very important role. Who are others? Others are Brahmins and the Kasthaj. They were the literate community, so they talked about themselves and they talked about the women. You see the Ghazal Attorney of Madhu, and Patrahin Nagn Gach of Yatri, and they talked about the downtrodden also, the common caste also. Now the trends are changing. Women are coming out. People from all the castes, they are coming out. So the new trend is already shaping its way. I think if you are given the opportunity to select the people right from Chanda Jha's time, and Chanda Jha died in 1907, then you have no other alternative but to take them. So that was my small this thing. With this, I again, he has some problem. Professor, yes, we have Professor Vidyanand Jha, sir. So, sir, please.
So hopefully you can see and hear me. Firstly, thanks
Yeah.
to Folkbrain for giving me this opportunity. Like Mathli translation itself, the internet is quite choppy today, so it's very realistic, real life kind of parallel, so to say. Let me first start by conveying my sense of gratitude to Dr. Lalitesh Mishra. Sometime back, I had actually, in some context, said that translation, and especially from Maithili, is an impossible enterprise. And he has got into this impossible enterprise with his own resources. There are no institutional resources in Maithili, or I should say, not no, very less institutional resources which support Maithili translations to other languages. So, hats off to him. Thank you. I should also declare conflict of interest. I'm one of the poets who has been anthologized in this. So, to that extent, I could actually be construed to have a relatively favorable kind of viewpoint about him. Now, firstly, it was a pleasure listening to so many distinguished panelists about various kind of things. I suddenly remembered a title by Raymond Carver. Uh, Title of his story is "What do we talk when we talk about love?" So I was saying, what do we talk when we talk about Maithili translations? Now, Maithili, as you know, is not only an Indian language. It's a language which is spoken in India, Nepal, and various parts of the globe. So basically, it's a international language. Uh, does the language actually experience modernity? I think all that is, let me, within the bounds of politeness, use a strong word. That's tripe. So basically, modernity, we know now, would not come actually in the same fashion to all parts of the world, and this whole faith in modernity itself, okay, I suspect in 2021 is not as kind of unproblematic as it was before. So to me, actually, in fact, I have been a literary translator from Maithili to English, also sometimes from English to Maithili, and recently I'm planning to, as a poet, I'm writing a series of poems on translation in Maithili. Okay. Now, one of the things which I do actually very strongly believe that as of today, translation of Maithili literature into English is also translating the Maithilhood or Maithildom or whatever you kind of call it, into the uh, idiom of the nation. Now, this nation, I would like to point out to you that ethnicities and nations are different kind of things. As ethnic, whatever kind of entity, Maithils have been around for a long time. In fact, if we go back to Sarahapada in 6th century and the poets, Siddha poets, so at least since that time there has been some kind of idea of Mithila, and the nation state, of course, is much newer. Now, English itself, in my own lifetime, right from the time when there were people like Lohia and so on, were trying to say that English is a language of the erstwhile masters and it should be banished, to we have come to a stage where even otherwise nationalist forces have embraced English. So head of a state going to United States and giving a speech in English constitutes actually a matter of national pride. So what I'm trying to tell you that English comes with all kind of trappings and Maithili remains with its own set of contextualities. Now, unless we actually understand both locales, we can't perhaps actually understand the notion of the Maithili translations themselves. Second thing, in fact, I would like to point out to you that in this book itself, there is something very interesting. Dr. Lalitesh Mishra, his labor of love, the dedication is it's in two parts. One is not of concern to me. The second part is to Maithili and non-Maithili readers who lay their hands on it. So it's a very interesting dynamics that actually any Maithili translation into English ideally should be read by people in English, because Maithil speaker or Maithili reader, perhaps we can argue that they are actually much better off reading the originals, and they don't need interlocution of translators. So to me right now, as a translator who wants Maithili translations to meet the world on their own terms, not on the terms of a very subjugated kind of neo-colonial subject in that sense. So I would like actually to Maithili translators to have a breakthrough in commercial publishing. That's not very in a sense, because say for example, Bhaskar was talking earlier about a book of poems of Amarji. It was not published by Sahitya Akademi, but it was self-published, the book by Murari Madhusudan Thakur. I'm familiar with Dr. Bhimnath Jha's excellent poems, again translation by Murari Madhusudan Thakur. That is again self-published. So my main problem perhaps get publishers would be picked up by readers in other languages. Otherwise, these are heroic kind of attempts, but in terms of their utility, I do not know. Now, what was said that we should show the world how good we are. Now, that is to me actually same complex, which sometimes gets interpreted as that. Look, here, I mean, I remember Brecht. The cursed is the land which needs kind of heroes. So why do we need heroes? Actually, why can't Maithili literature be self-confident in itself, and with all its kind of complexities and problems, which, for example, Rajesh ji was saying, that it is true. In fact, if you talk about Maithili language has been forsaken, especially literature has been forsaken by everybody but the Brahmin elite. And that also, so in fact, in other languages, what happened? And when in Marathi the Dalit literature comes, then Dalits still feel that it's worthwhile to write in Marathi. In Maithili, what is happening, that if there is a Dalit literature which comes, or Dalit literators who come, I don't feel Maithili is worthwhile to actually practice as a medium of literature. They would like to perhaps go over to Hindi, they would like to go over to perhaps something else. So anyway, to come back, therefore, second issue which I was trying to point out to you is the problematic nature of, in some ways, lack of institutional support, lack of kind of other things about Maithili literature, in which it becomes a viable enterprise and takes off. Third thing is very, as a literary translator, what I very get amused with, that we don't even have dictionaries, you see. So basically, recently I was translating a 1950s story, a great story to my mind, called Mukti by a person called Lalit, whose formal name incidentally happened to be Lalitesh Mishra, not to be confused with the, present Lalitesh Mishra. But Lalit, to my mind, is one of the best we had ever. Now, in that, there is certain kind of thali which is mentioned. Now, I started looking for a word for thali in English. Now, in English, you get thali not as a plate. It's primarily a Madrasi thali or a Rajasthani thali or a whatever, So it's a, what the offerings made by restaurants. And this specific thali actually was called Argaili thali or something. I mean, it was in use in Mithila in 1950s, but now it's nowhere. So we do need actually dictionaries if we want to sustain the enterprise of translations, pictorial dictionaries to my mind. Having said that about the poems in this volume itself, and I asked Kailash ji what would be the language of this talk, and he told me mostly English, but allow me to use a word which is Nai Mama se Kanha Mama Nete. So basically, we are in a situation where there is nothing happening, and there, a collection like this is a great thing. But I would also say that perhaps as I don't know who are again listening to this. So people who are non-native speakers of Maithili, if they want to come and see what is happening in the other part of the world, maybe it's a good kind of in a sense trailer to the movie. I do hope that there are more translators who kind of take to it. There are more people who get interested in it. I would also say that if there are people who are listening to me are more Maithils, we should also think about it, because I have for a long while tried to resist translating things from Maithili to other languages, because my view is that it's the native speakers of other languages should speak Maithili, translate Maithili, and they should actually understand Maithili. And that's why initially when I was saying that it's an impossible enterprise. So somebody who understands both the languages, somebody who has a non-power laden kind of equation with both the languages, and of course somebody who understands literature. All these are very difficult to find in the same person. But to go back, what I was trying to tell you, that I do hope that Maithils and Maithili institutions, they will try to organize workshops. They will try to valorize the translators who we already have from other languages. And there have been cases of translators from Telugu, Bangla, who do not have much axe to grind, and they have again translated Maithili works into their languages. So we should institute awards for them as Maithili institutions to actually bring them recognition. So again, my congratulations to Lalitesh ji. It's a yeoman's service. It's a very great kind of work which he has done. And if there were so many of them, then I think we could have very rationally looked at the quality, etc. Right now, to me, quality is not the issue. Basically, it's the only work of its kind, and we should welcome it. So thank you very much.
Sir. So some problem. May I now request Dr. D.N. Pathak, Devnath Pathak, to speak on this book.
Thank you. Almost a great deal has been already spoken, so I don't know. Probably I will be repeating some of those things already said. There is I join all the other panelists in congratulating the translator, author, Dr. Mishra. Absolutely no doubt about the merit of translation. We certainly need more translation. And this would be probably a very good resource for a lot of people who cannot follow Maithili in written form. They might be speaking in their family and all, but then so translation as such is not is something to be celebrated. But I am usually hesitant about celebration beyond a point. One feels jittery about joining a club of mutual admiration of some sort. In spite of the fact that one recognizes the merit in the work, probably there is necessity of talking about some of the issues which have been already raised by the panelists, be it the issue of larger issue of literary intellectual Brahmanism that has characterized writings in Maithili, though there have been significant changes lately. But if one goes for mathematical proportion, probably it would be very lopsided. So that issue stands for critical scrutiny and attention, most importantly. For me, it's more than a data-driven allegation of intellectual Brahmanism. For me, more important is this, scrutiny into the idea of poetic aesthetics, which is also very central to the claims that Dr. Mishra makes in the very beginning before he presents his translations. We all know that aesthetics has suffered a great deal of loss because of very strange kind of discourse about aesthetics, particularly in South Asia. Ever since Ananda Kumaraswamy on, there has been certain kind of, cultural nationalism-based understanding of aesthetics, which uprooted aesthetics from its social, cultural, political embeddedness, and that gives me an array of apprehensions about the art of translation itself. It's very unfortunate to hear that translation can be celebrated as a technically reduced exercise, as it was done by some people. I mean, I really wonder how engineers can ever understand the complex art of translations. It's the joke of this evening, probably. Reduction of any such literary art would be a great damage to the complexity of the art. We all know that technology helps us, but we also know the limitations of technology in the fact that every now and then internet is chopped, and we face disturbances. And not only that, we also know that all the online-based dictionary. Is translation merely about finding a replacement word from one language to another language? Most of the literary translators would probably have hesitation in accepting it. It's not simply about finding one word for another. It's more than that. And some of those things have been already referred to. But I guess from the discussion today, we understand that the elephant in the room is this art of translation, which is being talked about, on the pretext of this very important work of translation that Dr. Mishra has offered us, Pied Posse. On that pretext, we are trying to understand the problematic of translation, the art of translation, which on the one hand is being reduced into a technical exercise. There is a strange kind of unholy celebration, I would say, of that technically reduced exercise. On the other hand, as a sociologist of literature, somebody would be interested in asking other kind of questions too, which would be about the relation between act of translation and society at large. That relation can be expressed with the data-based discussion on the mathematical proportion of representation of caste and gender. But other than that, there could be another kind of possibility of raising similar kind of question, which would be about asking a question which has been asked in modern discourses on literary work. And the question was, who is the author? And particularly when it is a translated work, this question becomes far more important. Who is the author? And to answer this question, one has to get into the discourses around the author. No translation is in vacuum. Socio-cultural, socio-political embeddedness of translation makes the idea of author more complicated. It demands from us to understand the author's location, author's preferences, author's likes and dislikes, author's inclinations. And here author is in Elias form, a translator too. So one has to get into that social discourse around the authorship related to a translator's act of translation. What all is getting translated? That is another question which has emerged in other discussions in the notes given by other panelists too. What is getting recovered in an act of translation? Poetry, for sure, it is getting recovered. But is the poetic tendency, poetic disposition, poetic subjectivity, poetic inclinations, are they also discovered adequately? Or we fall back to some of the given registers of translation which have come from somewhere else. Unfortunately, in South Asia translation studies, there are departments in the name of translation studies, but translation studies are yet to take that vernacular or post-colonial turn, which we heard earlier. That post-colonial turn which will provide with intellectual confidence in the translators that you can develop your own register of translating, rather than taking your final resort, taking a refuge in some of those universal registers, universal parameters of translation that we have learned in our textbooks coming from somewhere else. This is not to say that one can trash all those textbooks of how to translate and what to do while you're translating. But then certainly there is a need to figure out whether subaltern can really speak in post-colonial act of translations in South Asia. And if the subaltern is not speaking, it is not the problem of subaltern, it's the problem of those who are translating on behalf of the subaltern. Related to that, I come to another question, which is not necessarily about literary Brahmanism, but it is related to a larger monster, which we are familiar with, is the monster of cultural nationalism. More often than not, any discussion on Maithili literature, Maithili culture revolves around this mode of, my great Mithila, the great Maithili, the great this and that. Fair enough. There could be something great, something grand about the cultural history of Mithila, but that does not give a license to really absolve oneself of all kind of charges that would emerge from what the other panelist was trying to suggest, the data-based, the mathematical data-based questions. My problem here is that this is so ironical that on one hand we resort to mode of cultural nationalism. On the other hand, if we have to really discuss Maithili poems translated by Dr. Lalit Mishra, one has to go back to Yeats, one has to go back to Eliot, right? This is very interesting because it seems that Maithili modernity does not exist. One has to understand Maithili modernity through these poems, one has to get back to some of those landmarks which one has read since school days. There is absolutely no denial about the importance of that landmark, but that also shows the intellectual poverty of the literary scholars or those who do literary studies or translation studies in India and in South Asia, that they have really forsaken the possibility of generating their own ground of understanding the poetry which has emerged from this part of the world. I would not repeat many of those things which have been already said, but I was very inclined to get into some of those issues too. The themes, the questions which emerged from the translated poems in this book, those themes actually put together can help many of the students of social sciences, across social sciences, not only sociology, also students of political science. And political science is not that rigid a discipline the way teachers of political science in various premier universities would like to present to their students. Interestingly, students are doing far better job, and therefore they are looking at print capitalism, literary public sphere, and so on and so forth within political science discourse. And that also is very, so that kind of hope exists. And with that optimism, one begins to wonder whether one can really provide, based on these, this kind of poem which we read in this book, can we really generate a discourse, a debate on some of those issues, say, for example, of love, belonging, belonging to a land, association, relationship, kinship, most importantly. Some of those themes are very resonant across the translated work that we see in this book. So can one, my question for most of the students of social sciences, and for them it would be a relevant exercise to engage with this translated work, is to figure out the ways of debating some of these categories. Most importantly, the importance of emotions that we so frequently come across in poetry. And if we have to talk about that emotion in social sciences, it is largely reduced into the categories, familiar categories of social stratification. So that can be taken as a cue by many of the social science students to get ahead with this kind of materials. I will not say much, but my bottom line of the whole interjection is to really think of or revisit critically the idea of Maithili modernity through this kind of work. And while we revisit that idea of Maithili modernity, that vernacular modernity, we need to innovate our own registers of not only talking about poetry, also the way translations happen. Thank you.
May I now request again Dr. Lalit Kumar, the technology is disturbing us. So the problem.
Yes. Thank you so
Again,
much. I hope this.
I'm trying to get him, Dr. Lalit.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible this time.
Yeah. You are audible. This time you are in.
My apologies. My sincerest apologies due to some technological disturbance. I couldn't join earlier.
Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. At the outset, I would like to thank Folkbrain for organizing this kind of panel discussion and for giving me a chance to share my thoughts with a group of academicians, a group of distinguished academicians. Once, the great Greek orator Demosthenes was asked, "What is the most important thing in oratory?" His answer was, 3 things matter in oratory: delivery, delivery, and delivery. When I asked a similar question to one of the contemporary translators, accomplished translator, what matters the most in the art of translation, his answer was, 3 things matter in translation: readability, readability, and readability. So as far as the current book is concerned, as far as the yardstick of readability is concerned, I thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. I read some of the originals as well as the English renderings, which have been done beautifully. So at the outset, I would like to congratulate Professor Lalitesh Mishra for bringing out this excellent anthology in English, especially because unlike Bengali, Oriya, and many modern Indian languages, there's a dearth of Maithili books in English. And with translation, this lacuna can be filled, and Maithili as a language can be enriched. Almost 100 years ago, when Maithili literary studies were institutionalized in Calcutta University under the vice chancellorship of Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, father of Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, there was a dearth of Maithili books and teachers. But ever since, we have developed a thriving literary culture, yet it is not easy to find Maithili books in English, Maithili poems, novels, or plays in English. So I'm so glad to go through this anthology, which is a commendable work. The book begins with a beautiful poem by Chanda Jha, where the poet laments his old age as he is confined to bed. Yet he shows trust in Ramachandra. The poem, in fact, reminds the readers of Tulsi Das's unflinching faith in Lord Rama. One can undoubtedly say that what Tulsi did for the Avadhi language, Chanda Jha did for Maithili by composing Maithili Bhasha Ramayana. In fact, Jaykant Mishra, in his book History of Maithili Literature, said that every line of Chanda Jha's Ramayana was discussed in the court of Maharaja Lakshmishra Singh before it was finally incorporated in the form of a text. Chanda Jha is so important in modern Maithili poetry, that Jaykant Mishra, in his History of Maithili Literature, devotes a particular section to him and calls it Age of Chanda Jha. So it was fascinating to see that anthology begins with a beautiful poem by Chanda Jha. The range of this book is amazing as it covers several topics such as love, longing, lament, nature, caste, women-centric issues, and above all, disillusionment with independence, disillusionment with Nehruvian ideals and Gandhian ideals of Ramarajya. I would like to discuss briefly two poems in order to talk about the aforesaid issues. The first poem that drew my attention is Rajkamal Chaudhary's Vidyapati's Impact and Mithila's Women. And the poem was briefly discussed. I'm so glad it was briefly discussed by Professor Rajesh Jha as well. The poem foregrounds the plight of women in Mithila. I would like to quote 4 lines from the poem. Having sung entire Vidyapati songs 1,000 times in their courtyard, porch during festivities, nuptial light, and in the darkness of Kohbat, unmoved Mithila's women remained all the same. Unmoved Mithila's women remained the same. It was originally published in Mithila Mihir in 1964, and it discusses the plight of women, as I said earlier. How to reform the condition of women, how to educate them, is a recurring concern in Maithili literary culture. It's a recurring trope in Maithili literary culture. And while reading this beautiful poem, I was reminded of Hari Mohan Jha, who in his autobiography Jeevan Yatra, for which he was awarded Sahitya Academy Award, in that autobiography he discusses his student days. And he says that when he went to Patna University to pursue BA in English, he was surprised to see only one female student in the entire university. And that too, the female student, the woman student, was not from Mithila, but from Utkal Desh, that is modern Orissa. So he was utterly shocked, utterly surprised. And then he felt, or he saw the same dream for Maithil women. They should come out and read. And eventually this idea became the basis of his Maithili classic Kanyadan, on which the first film in Maithili was made by Fani Majumdar in 1965. So this poem drew my attention. It's a fascinating poem and it has been beautifully translated. Another thing that I find in this poem is how Vidyapati's songs have been preserved by women. In fact, today lots of people talked about literary Brahmanism in Maithili, and I think this idea should be probed. Instead of falling into political propaganda, we should probe it a little further, and I'll come to that later if time permits. But Maithili songs, especially Vidyapati's songs, have been preserved by women, by the illiterates, by the poor, those who live in huts, especially the downtrodden, those who live on the margins. I am reminded of a beautiful poem by Dinkar called Himalaya. There he writes, Kabivar Vidyapati ke gaan kahan? Ori udas gandaki bata Kabivar Vidyapati ke gaan kahan? And the same question is taken by Dinkar, sorry, not Dinkar, by Phanishwanath Renu in his novel Maila Aanchal, where the protagonist Prashant asks, where can we find the songs of Vidyapati? And the answer is, Kabivar Vidyapati ke gaane milenge hame jhopriyon mein, garibon ke jhopriyon mein, garibon ke paas. Because initially Maithili was mainly an oral language. It had a literary heritage, of course, but it was widely used by people cutting across class, caste, gender. And that is why when Grierson, for the first time in the 1880s, collected all the available literary specimens of Maithili, there were songs sung by the so-called lower caste, such as dosads, women. There were several oral songs that were compiled. So I think this accusation of literary Brahmanism needs to be probed further. There is another important thing that this beautiful poem by Chaudhary touches upon, and that is, again, a social evil of Maithil society, that was polygamy and bride's price. There's a sentence in the poem, aged Pathakji had moves afoot for marriage. Pathakji is an old man, yet he craves another wife. And as we know in Mithila, polygamy and paying bride's price were two major social evils. And there were several authors all over India, like Hari Mohan Jha, Fakir Mohan Senapati, Appa Rao, who wrote Kanya Shulkam, Nagarjun wrote Budhabar, and Ratinath Ki Chachi. All these authors had started a movement against this social evil of paying bride's price. In fact, even in the Mahabharata, ancient text Mahabharata, there is only one instance, only one reference to bride price. Even Manu Smriti denounces it. So this particular social evil of polygamy and bride price have been captured, have been discussed beautifully in this poem. That is why it drew my attention. Second poem that I'll dwell upon briefly, and the poem that fascinated me, is Vidyanath Mishra or Yatri's Vulture, is squatted on house. And there's a striking similarity between Nagarjun's poem and another poem that follows in the anthology, that is Ramkrishna Jha's Kusums, Alienated in Homeland. And these two poems focus on a very significant theme, that is disillusionment with the ideals of independence, Nehruvian dream, and Gandhian ideals of Ram Rajya. Again, this theme is so important that it was taken up by several authors in post-independent India. And today, at the outset, Professor Mishra argued how this particular theme is a hallmark of modern Maithili poetry. And it is not only a hallmark of modern Maithili poetry, but this theme has been discussed and taken up by a wide range of authors in post-independent India, such as Harishankar Parsai, Nagarjun, Phanishwanath Renu, Srilal Shukla, and others. It's a dominant trope. So these two themes fascinated me in the poem. So I would like to stop here because I'm sure time is running out. It's already 9 o'clock. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed reading this poem. And before I end, I would like to add one more thing to the idea of literary Brahmanism, for which many people accused Maithili and Maithili proponents today of. We must understand that initially, I mean, in the pre-colonial period, especially in the pre-colonial period, Maithili was used by people cutting across caste, class, and gender. Certain things may happen with the advent of colonial modernity, quote unquote, and printing press, that Maithili was accused of being the language of the upper caste. And this accusation too needs to be probed, because in the uplift of modern Maithili, not only Brahmins played an instrumental role, even Kayas play a key role. And Kayas in several parts of India were not treated as upper castes. In Bihar, it may have been the case, but think of the neighboring province of Orissa. In Orissa, Sarla Das, who wrote the Mahabharata in Oriya, calls himself a Shudra Muni, and he is a caste by birth. He's a caste. He doesn't treat him as an upper caste. So caste too had played an instrumental role in the rise of modern Maithili. And we also need to look at political propaganda against Maithili that took place especially in the 1990s, when Lalu Prasad Yadav had banned Maithili, had removed Maithili, had banished Maithili from the list of subjects offered by BPSC. And the logic that he gave was that upper caste joined services, administrative services, by opting Maithili as a subject. People went to court. High Court had rejected this ban. And then eventually, when Maithili was included in the 8th schedule of Indian Constitution, all sorts of bans against Maithili were automatically abolished. So it could well be a political propaganda, especially because of late several authors belonging to non-Brahminical caste too have started writing in Maithili. So instead of accusing Maithili of being an exclusive language, we should look at the context in which Maithili was accused of being so. We should ask under what context, under what circumstances Maithili was Maithili started getting perceived as the language of the upper caste? That should be a question raised by and inquired by sociologists and political scientists. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
म्यूट छी भैया.
Sir, you are not audible.
Dr.
Mute,
Snigdha,
mute.
very well narrated, Dr. Lalit. Dr. Snigdha, you know, I'm saving time, so just calling people and telling them to speak. Little ruthless, but I do not have any other options.
नौ बज गेले कैलाश जी.
अच्छा अच्छा ठीक
नौ बज गेले
सर. अब एक दुइटा रह गेलखिन है सर. ई एकटा बहुत यूनिक प्रयोग छै सर. कतौ एहन तरह के प्रयोग नहीं देखने हेबै सर. ई प्रयोग जे छै से फोके बेरे नहीं कह सकै छी.
हां से तो बढ़िया छै.
बोलो स्निग्धा.
As we are, first of all, very warm welcome to all the panelist member at Kailash sir. Gratitude to Kailash sir. I will not take much time, as in already a lot has been said, and people who have spoken, they are more experienced, and you know, they are masters in their field. So I will not take much time, although I have prepared a lot. But I think since we are getting short of time, I will conclude it as fast as possible. Okay. So first of all, poetry. First, I was thinking that even what Tanushri ma'am said, that the poetry, when we start with Quietude, the poem by Chanda Jha, what I think is that even Bhaskar Jha's review I have read, and he has, you know, compared it with Shakespeare's poem, The Seven Stages of Life. The old man, about how it is, you know, the old men and all are described as in the old man forgetting everything and being forgotten by everyone. Similarly, even Tanushri ma'am has told about the W.B. Yeats's concept of an old man is but a tattered coat upon stick. So all these things have already been explained. What I was getting after reading the poems was that I think these poems can be quite paralleled with Sanskrit thing also. As in, there is one Chapat Patika Strotram in which it is written Angang Galitang Palitang Mundang Dashang Bihinang Jatang Tundam Vidhyo Yati Grihitwa Dandam Tadapina Munchati Asha Pindam Bhaj Govindang Bhaj. As in, when you are old, and you know, when you are old, your skull is distorted and things like that. Okay. Similarly, if you move towards after Quietude, then comes the nature fury, about how, you know, the river is considered both as a mother as well as she is but just the harbinger of, you know, fecundity and prosperity, as well as this is the destroyer of our happiness. As in, when it is, you know, summer, the river looks like a thin patch of something of well, but in the rainy season, it becomes a bring forward a thing of you know, mighty furor and all. And what I liked about this anthology, Sir Lalitesh Mishra sir has done a very in-depth study, and it is really very hard to get an exact translation of all the words that are in Maithili to translate it into Hindi, because I am someone who is a Maithil speaking. I am born and brought up in Darbhanga, the heart of Mithila. And I think he has done a commendable job. Similarly, after Quietude, then when we move to the poem Chanda Jha's Night Fury, there are many things that, you know, that struck my mind. As in, I will not quote each and every poem because we are having shortage of time, and you know, the panelist members, they are also in a bit of hurry and things like that. As in, when there is a thing about politics and religion, the cosmopolitanism is something that I really like. And I, though in front of all my respected panel members, I think I'm just a novice in my field, and I'm just a poet of, you can say, just a little merit in front of you all. But I think that there is not anything that is exploited in the English poetry that is not here. As in, even when for example, about cosmopolitan religion and politics, as in when one poet quotes that, the mosque was demolished and on the place of it is temple is built. And that is very, symbolical, because while we are teaching in this to students, be it in Delhi University or the Amity University, we are always told that to instill in students a sense of, respect for all the religions of this world, because every religion of this world, be it the Hinduism, the Jainism, etc., the basic essence is same. As in, no religion in this world teaches you to be intolerant. And the people and the teenagers who are, these politicians are also very shrewd. They try to, poison the minds of our youth, telling that, and those who are fighting on the name of, Bible, Quran, as well as the Gita, you ask them, they won't be knowing even one slok of Gita. And the people and even the Muslim terrorists who are fighting, you ask them, do you know any ayat of Quran? They will say, oh no, we are not. So what I loved about the anthology, the poems, as in it is very hard to, quote unquote each and every poet and poem. What I loved is that, that in the anthology, there is a collection of poems where the aim is about, to have to have an equal respect about religion. Then there are the poem about vulture, as in, since I have told you earlier that I have been born and brought up in Mithila, and I was from a family where right from Tila Sankranti to Aghan, etc., we used to celebrate each and every possible, festival with all the aura and majesty. Okay, so what I think is that, and this has been given here many themes, as in about the vulture, that it is a satire, that if vultures, they sit on your house, then the house needs to be demolished, it should be put on fire, and things like that. And I'm reminded how whenever we were moving and a reptile like lizard, it used to fall on us, and then also we feel the same thing, as in, go and you should sprinkle Ganga Jal and all. So it is a type of trip down the memory lane, and it is very akin to when now finally when there was poems about father, and I was thinking that, oh, why am I reading the book? It is all about, I think, the methods, they are generally patriarchal, and they have included all about the the patriarchy and all. But then when I rolled down, and my other panelist members were right when they said that the inclusion of female poets can be a bit larger. But when you read their poet, for example, Nivedita Mishra Jha's poem, I have met her in Delhi once, so I have quoting her poem, and she has written about, as in, she says that, it is not you that, not I who driving you to war. It is thing of your own, okay? You only indulge, and it is a type of, you can say, rebuttal, as in most of the things, most of the people, they say that women always are the cause of war. Be it Mahabharata was fought because of Draupadi, Ramayana was, because of Sita, Haran, etc. So it is a kind of, and all the themes that has been mentioned about, even I had prepared about this Julia Kristeva, Helen Sexu, etc. But sir has already said, and we are already having shortage of time. What I believed is that the themes, there is a quest for identity, as in even in my poems I have written, as in there is a say that where is the home, I'm an Indian woman born with a feeling of inferiority, and you can say uniformity, and from cradle to coffin, do I need a male for my survival? And same thing is there when in one of the female poets poetry I read that she is aspiring in the life in the metropolis, and she is aspiring to have an identity of one. And she says that just because she's the homemaker of the family, it doesn't mean that male can overrule her. If she is answering the male, that doesn't mean that he has got the authority to answer with all the, why should I give a rebuttal of my happiness? So the theme is quite, and about the quest for identity, as in the quest for being loved, not only as a mere sex object or body. The importance is on, you can say, that loving the soul. And here also I feel one about the many scholars have already discussed about that Vidyapati's poem. There also I feel that there is a keenness with John Donne. In John Donne poetry, we always see that there is an amalgamation of the sacred and the secular. As a result of which, for many generations, the poetry was, they were thinking that it is these poetries are not worth reading. But with the revival in the lives of the English poets and all, John Donne has been given a very good poetry, and T.S. Eliot gave them a very big, telling that they are poets of wit and imagery. And he says that poetry is not for everyone; it is for refined, cultured, and sophisticated few. So I think that even when it comes to anthology and the translation power also, I tell you in front of you people, I'm just a novice, but I feel that when I read the book, I think it deserves some type of prize, because the translation is very apt, and because since sir himself has devoted so much of time in English teaching and all the things that are I think that are there in my poetry, I find an expression in the Mathil poetry also. And I'm very happy to read this book, because had it not been translated into English, there is a thing that I would have never read their poetry. But after reading the poem, I feel that the themes are the same, as in when I write in Catharsis that vacillating between two extremes, I lead a life of vicariousness. Similarly, here also it is mentioned that a woman has no house of its own. Okay, the house where she goes, the house where she is born is not her own. The house she goes never accepts her on her own. And similarly, in Mathil culture also it is said, it's seen that once the child is born, a woman is not known by the name. Once she get married, she has to get a good other name at her sasural, and after the child is born, she is somebody's wife, she is somebody's mother, she is somebody's daughter, but never has she got an identity of herself. So I think the echo is there in all the female writing, and I truly also believe that there should be at least some representation of Dalit writers, as well as more of women writers writing in Mathili should be included in that. Otherwise, it's a very good anthology, and and Sir Lalitesh Mishra deserve a huge round of applause for this. Thank you very much. With this, I add my thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Snigdha. You have shared your thought on book and on also the gender and on everything. Thank you. You know, now I think when I should now, without wasting my time, invite Professor Dev Shankar Naveen to speak, and he is the president of this chairperson of this session. So he should speak out, and while giving thank Professor Lalitesh Mishra, if he wish to, he can answer some of the queries that has been raised by the people. But at the end, before that, I should request Professor Dev Shankar Naveen to speak his thought and also conclude the session. सर
धन्यवाद।
अब आपके ऊपर है सर।
धन्यवाद कैलाश जी। मुझे लगता नहीं कि मैं जो जवाब दे दूंगा उसके बाद ललितेश भाई को इच्छा होगी कि अब मुझे मैं उनकी बातों का उन पर जो सवाल उठाए गए हैं, मैं कोशिश कर रहा हूं कि उनकी भी बात का जवाब मैं दे सकूं। अब इतना ज्ञानी तो हूं नहीं कि बड़े बड़े विद्वानों की सारी बातों का जवाब दे सकूं, मगर हाँ, पहले संबोधन के लिए प्रिय अनुज कैलाश जी, आदरणीय भाई ललितेश जी, तनुश्री, अनुभव आनंद, भास्कर जी, विद्यानंद जी, देवनाथ जी, राजेश जी, स्निग्धा जी और ललित जी, इस आज की इस संध्या के लिए पहली बधाई के पात्र तो हैं कैलाश जी। बधाई और मैथिली साहित्य के प्रेमियों की तरफ से आभार के पात्र भी हैं कि उन्होंने इस महत्वपूर्ण कृति पर इतने सारे जो इस किताब का, इस अनुदित किताब का नाम है पाइड पोएजी, तो इन्होंने ये समीक्षकों के लिए भी जो डिस्कशंस हैं उनके लिए भी एक पाइड बनाया और सबकी अपनी अपनी धारणा थी, सबने अपने विचार व्यक्त किए हैं। तो ये इस एक रंग बिरंगी फुलडाली के लिए कैलाश जी बहुत बिग हैंड से बधाई के पात्र हैं। और इनके बाद मैं यदि अतिशयोक्ति लोग ना माने तो मैं यह मानता हूं कि 19वीं शताब्दी के आखिरी चरण में किसी भी भारतीय द्वारा भारतीय साहित्य के विदेशी भाषा में अनुवाद का पहला प्रयास हुआ था राजा राम मोहन राय द्वारा, और किसी भी मैथिल द्वारा मैथिली कविताओं का पहला संकलन अंग्रेजी में, जिसे मैं विदेशी भाषा ही मानता हूँ, बेशक मान्यता दे दी गई हो अंग्रेजी की, मगर विदेशी भाषा तो है अंग्रेजी, और उसमें पहला संकलन ललितेश मिश्र द्वारा संकलित, संचयित, संपादित और अनुदित है। तो इसके लिए हमारे बड़े भाई ललितेश जी के प्रति मैं संपूर्ण मैथिली रचना धर्मी की तरफ से आभार प्रकट करता हूं कि उन्होंने यह एक काम किया। बहुत पहले लगभग 1965-66 के आसपास मैथिली में एक मैथिली नव कविता शीर्षक से राजकमल चौधरी के सहयोग से रामकृष्ण झा किशुन ने एक संचयन मैथिली कविताओं का तैयार किया था, जो दुखद ही है कि राजकमल चौधरी भी गुजर गए और किशुन जी भी गुजर गए। उसके बाद 1971 में उसका प्रकाशन हुआ, और वैसा चुनिंदा प्रकाशन बीच में फिर से मैथिली में आया नहीं। बीच में नाम प्रसंग आ गया, इसलिए पहले मैं राजेश जी को संबोधित करते हुए यह इस बात का उल्लेख करना चाहूँगा कि उन्होंने जो मैथिली में जिस तरह से ब्राह्मणों का और ये दलितों का और स्त्रियों का प्रश्न उठाया, मुझे लगता है कि कैलाश जी ने तो संकेत में कह ही दिया कि मैथिली साहित्य की इन समस्याओं पर बात करने से पहले आपको मिथिलांचल के समाज शास्त्र को या कि समाज के अध्ययन को देखना होगा। और इस अध्ययन को यदि जिन किसी विद्वान को मैथिली भाषा के संबंध में ये सब बात उठती है, उन्हें अकेले राजकमल चौधरी का कथा साहित्य या अकेले राजकमल चौधरी की कविताएं या अकेले यात्री वैद्यनाथ मिश्र यात्री की कविता पढ़ लें तो उन्हें दुनिया के सारे समाजशास्त्री राजकमल चौधरी के सामने में छोटे लगेंगे। ये हिम्मत राजकमल चौधरी की कहानी का जो समाज शास्त्र है वो अकेले राजकमल चौधरी के सामने में पूरी दुनिया के समाजशास्त्री छोटे लगेंगे। तो ये जब कभी हम साहित्य के संबंध में बात करें, ललितेश मिश्र ने तो इन कविताओं का चयन और अनुवाद किया है। अब इसमें यदि मैथिली साहित्य के ये मैथिली कविता के क्षेत्र को देखना हो तो मैं एक आत्म प्रशंसा न माने और आत्म प्रचार न माने, तो जब मैं नेशनल बुक ट्रस्ट से निकलने लगा था तो मैथिली के 63 कवियों का एक संकलन तैयार किया था, जिसमें अधिकांश कवियों की 5-5, 6-6, 7-7, 8-8 कविताएं संकलित थी, और करीब करीब 30-32 पेज में मैथिली कविता की परिस्थितियों पर मैंने एक लेख लिखा था। बहुत तो नहीं, लेकिन मैथिली कविता की संक्षिप्त स्थिति उसमें दिख जाएगी आपको। और ये जो पाइड पोएजी में जो ललितेश जी ने जितनी महिला कवित्रियों जितनी कवित्रियों को शामिल किया है, मैथिली में जमा पूंजी इतनी ही कवित्री है। पुरुषों में उन्होंने चयन किया है, स्त्रियों में कोई चयन नहीं किया है, दलितों में कोई चयन नहीं किया है। अब जब हैं ही नहीं तो कैलाश जी ने तो सही फरमाया कि आप जिस मिथिलांचल में ये लिटरेसी रेट का ये हाल है, और जिस मिथिलांचल से जो सवर्ण वर्ग में भी जो लोग पढ़ते हैं, उनको पढ़ते समय स्कूली शिक्षा के समय मैथिली आज भी बाल शिक्षा का विषय नहीं है। 10वीं क्लास में जब मैं आया तो पहली बार मैथिली लिखा हुआ देखा, तब तक तो मेरा त्रिभाषा सूत्र कायम हो चुका था, आज भी कायम हो चुका है। इसलिए ज्यादातर मैथिल नौजवान जो अपने रोजगार में आते हैं, उन्हें अपनी भाषा से प्रेम नहीं हो पाता। वो उसको न तो अपनी अकादमिक भाषा बना पाते हैं, ना उसे बाजार की भाषा बना पाते हैं, क्योंकि अब तो बाजार दिल्ली का बाजार तो मैथिली सुनेगा नहीं, बंगलोर का बाजार मैथिली सुनेगा नहीं, और घरेलू भाषा में इसलिए नहीं हो पाता है कि किसी किसी को इस तरह से, मेरे दोस्त का एक छोटा भाई है जो दरभंगा का है और उसकी पत्नी मधुबनी की है, दोनों अच्छी मैथिली मेरे साथ बोलते हैं, आपस में मैथिली नहीं बोलते। इसका नतीजा हुआ कि उनके बच्चे नहीं बोलते हैं, जैसे कि तनुश्री जी कह रही थी कि उनके बच्चे मैथिली नहीं बोलते लेकिन समझते हैं। जब अब आपको अपनी मातृभाषा से अनुराग ही नहीं हो पाएगा तो ये इस अनुराग के अलावा तब तो और कोई रास्ता नहीं है। उस रास्ता को रेखांकित करने के लिए कम से कम यह किताब एक 3 या मुश्किल से 3 या 4 कवि कवित्री ऐसे हैं जिनकी 2-2 कविताओं का अनुवाद ललितेश जी ने किया है, बाकी सबकी एक का किया है। इस कविता की इस संग्रह के छपने के बाद पहली ही बातचीत में मैंने ललितेश भाई से चर्चा भी की थी, और वैसा संकलन कभी आ पाया तो राजेश जी ने जो एक प्रोफाइल का उल्लेख किया है, एक कविता के साथ किसी कवित्री या कवि का बड़ा सा प्रोफाइल देना थोड़ा वैसा भी लगता। अब तो या तो ललितेश जी करेंगे या विद्यानंद जी करेंगे या तनुश्री जी करेंगे, और जो 2 नौजवान अनुभव आनंद और अभी मैं ललित जी, आपको बहुत बधाई देता हूं, आपने बहुत पढ़ा है और मैथिली का गहन अध्ययन किया है। आपको कुछ और अध्ययन करना चाहिए, और इस तरह से जो दृष्टि है आपको मैथिली को देखने की, ये आपको बहुत आगे तक ले जाएगा, क्योंकि मातृभाषा मनुष्य को बहुत बड़ा बनाती है। और जो व्यक्ति अपनी मातृभाषा भूल जाए वो कहीं का नहीं रहता, क्योंकि मातृभाषा केवल ये संप्रेषण का माध्यम नहीं है। मातृभाषा मनुष्य को पहचान देती है, वो उसकी आइडेंटिटी है, वो उसकी नेशनलिटी है, वो उसकी राष्ट्रीयता है। मुझे जानकारी दी गई, मैं उस आयोजन में था नहीं, विद्यानंद जी गए थे, पटना में कोई आयोजन था जिसमें इन्होंने सारे मैथिल अपनी ही पीठ, कोई साहित्य पर ही आयोजन था, सब अपनी अपनी पीठ स्वयं थपथपा रहे थे। और जैसा कि देवनाथ जी ने कहा कि मैथिली इज ग्रेट, मिथिला इज ग्रेट, इसी तरह की बात वो लोग कर रहे थे। तो उसमें जब आयोजन समाप्त हुआ, मैं नहीं जानता कि विद्यानंद जी मेरी बात का ये सही मानेंगे या क्या, पर लोगों ने कहा कि विद्यानंद जी ने अंत में धिक्कारा सबको कि अब उस सब से काम नहीं चलेगा भाइयों, अब आपको बाजार में प्रूफ करना पड़ेगा, साबित करना पड़ेगा कि आपकी भाषा क्या कर रही है और आप अपनी भाषा में क्या कर रहे हैं। देवनाथ जी की इस बात से मैं सहमत हूं कि ज्यादातर मैथिल जो हैं वो उसी तरह के काम में लगे हुए हैं, माय मैथिली इज ग्रेट, माय मैथिली, इसी में वे लगे हैं। मगर मैं देवनाथ जी को इस बात की भी गारंटी देता हूं कि उन लोगों की साहित्य में कोई पूछ नहीं है, उनका वो साहित्य नहीं है, वो अपना कीर्तन भजन करते रहें। उनको न विद्यानंद जी महत्व देते हैं, न ललितेश जी महत्व देते हैं, और न कोई और ही देते हैं। मगर ये काम जो हो रहा है, इसमें जब शिक्षा की स्थिति मिथिला में ये है, स्त्री शिक्षा के बारे में अभी भी मिथिलांचल का हाल बहुत अच्छा नहीं है, और इन सब चीजों के पीछे सबसे जो बड़ा कारण है वो है गरीबी। और गरीबी में भी एक शब्द मैं जोड़ना चाहता हूं, मैथिल गरीबी। मैथिल गरीबी की कोई जाति या कोई क्षेत्र होता नहीं, लेकिन मैथिल गरीबी एक पिकुलियर किस्म की गरीबी है, जो गरीबी ये भौतिकता से नहीं, मानसिकता से है। उनके दिमाग में वो गरीबी बैठी हुई है कि मैं दीनहीन हूं। इस गरीबी से जब तक मुक्ति नहीं होगी, तब तक साहित्य के संबंध में जो लोग नहीं मैथिली साहित्य को पढ़ना चाहते, उनको पढ़ना चाहिए, मगर चूंकि वे मैथिली पढ़ने के अभ्यासी नहीं हैं, तो उनके लिए ले देकर, हरे कृष्ण जी तो अब रहे नहीं, तो ले देकर तनुश्री जी, ललितेश जी और विद्यानंद जी का ही सहारा है। क्योंकि मैथिली में जो अब तक अनुवाद की धारणा बनती आई है, वह धारणा, उसका मामला कुछ कुछ तस्करी टाइप का है। वो अनुवादक अपनी, जिसको हम पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ ट्रांसलेशन कहते हैं, जिसका अनुवाद हिंदी में मैं अनुवाद की राजनीति नहीं करना चाहता, अनुवाद की नीति करना चाहता। ये जो पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ ट्रांसलेशन है या पावर डिस्कोर्स ऑफ जो ट्रांसलेशन है, वह मैथिली में कुछ विचित्र किस्म का है। हम सबको बलैया लेनी चाहिए ललितेश जी की, कि उन्होंने अपने प्रयास से, अपने चयन से यह काम किया। मैथिली में ज्यादातर जो मैथिली में अन्य भाषा से अनुवाद होता है, वो साहित्य अकादमी के सहारे होता है, और वे अनुवादक अनुवाद तो कहे जाते हैं कि कन्नड़ से हुआ है, लेकिन असल में वे हिंदी से करते हैं और फिर मैथिली से हिंदी में कर देते हैं। ये जो अनुवाद में तस्करी होती है, यह तस्करी पैसे के लिए होती है। एक भी व्यक्ति मुझे ये इन 3 अनुवादकों को छोड़कर, ललितेश मिश्र, विद्यानंद झा और तनुश्री को छोड़कर, एक अनुवादक का नाम आप नहीं ले सकते जो लाभ लोभ से इतर कोई अनुवाद करते हों और जिनमें अनुवादक की निष्ठा चंदा झा की तरह हो। आप ध्यान दीजिए कि 1881 ईस्वी में चंदा झा ने जब अनुवाद किया था पुरुष परीक्षा का, तो उनके सामने एक धारणा थी। वो धारणा थी कि 1857 हार चुके थे हम, और भारतेंदु ने नारा दे दिया था कि निज भाषा उन्नति है सब उन्नति को मूल। चंदा झा ने वह अनुवाद करके मैथिलों को बताना चाहा कि भाई पुरुष ऐसे होते हैं, हे मैथिल बंधु तुम ऐसे बनो। और उस किताब की भूमिका चंदा झा ने हिंदी में लिखी थी भारतेंदु के उस नारे के कारण। ये था उसका राष्ट्रीय योगदान। उन्हीं दिनों चंदा झा ने मिथिला भाषा रामायण क्यों लिखा था? उसको मैथिली के प्रोफेसर मानते रहे कि ये रामायण है, वो रामायण नहीं है। वो राम कथा का ऐसा अनुवाद उन्होंने इसलिए मैथिली में किया था कि वे मैथिल नौजवानों को बता रहे थे कि प्यारे, देश संकट में है और इस समय ऐसे राम की जरूरत है, ऐसे नायक की जरूरत है। जिस समय 1910 ईस्वी में रामचंद्र शुक्ल ने जब अर्नस्ट हैकल की किताब का अनुवाद किया था, वो एक राष्ट्रीय चेतना थी। बेकन के निबंधों का अनुवाद जो महावीर प्रसाद द्विवेदी ने किया था, वो एक राष्ट्रीय चेतना थी। और इस तरह की राष्ट्रीय चेतना से, चंदा झा की राष्ट्रीय चेतना से, आज तक इन 3 अनुवादकों को छोड़कर मेरी ये जानकारी का अभाव हो सकता है 2-1 लोग और हों, मगर अनुवादक जब तक पैसे के लिए किसी भी चीज का अनुवाद करने के लिए बैठ जाएंगे तो अनुवाद अच्छा नहीं होगा। ललितेश जी का यह प्रयास स्तुत्य है, सराहनीय है, प्रणम्य है, और ये सभी मैथिली के लोगों को और सभी मैथिलों को समझना चाहिए। तनुश्री जी अपनी बातचीत में जिस मिठास की चर्चा कर रही थी, वो मिठास असल में अनुवाद में भी आता है। मैथिली में तो रहता ही है, और मिठास आता है किसी भाषा में संस्कृति के कारण। और उस संस्कृति को की रक्षा के लिए ललितेश जी ने कितने उद्यम किए हैं। वो देखिए कि कई कविताएं मैंने चुनकर रखी थी, मगर मायानंद मिश्र की एक कविता है, रिवेलियस न्यू जनरेशन। ये नई पीढ़ी का विद्रोह, इस कविता का यह अनुवाद है। इसमें एक जगह इन्होंने लिखा है, एंड देयरफॉर वी आर स्टिल लेट इन आवर रेस्पेक्टिव ग्रेव्स एंड वेटिंग फॉर फादर्स डेथ, ओनली देन वी कुड with the help of father's blackjack get out of our vault वेज ए वार अगेंस्ट कौरवाज। ये जो ललितेश जी ने, और भी कई कविताओं में मैंने ये सब चुना था, लेकिन अब बात जितनी हो चुकी उसको दोहराने की जरूरत नहीं, केवल मैं कुछ कुछ बिंदुओं को छू लेता हूं कि ये बात ललितेश जी ने संस्कृति की रक्षा के लिए शब्दों का कितना ध्यान रखा है। ये आप जब इसको पढ़ेंगे और मिथिलांचल के कंटेक्स्ट में और मूल लेखक या मूल कवि ने जिस समय यह लिखा था उस कंटेक्स्ट में देखना शुरू करेंगे, तब इस बात की सीधी समझ आएगी। जैसे यात्री जी की कविता का इस घर पर बैठा था गिद्ध, अही घर पर बैसल, घर पर बैसल छल गिद्ध। वो गिद्ध कौन है, उसका मेटाफर, उसका प्रतीक देखने की जरूरत है कि नागार्जुन सीधे, यात्री सीधे कहते हैं इसकी छप्पर से, इसके लठ से, इसके पिलर से, इसके कोरोबाती से, हर चीज से आप नाता तोड़िए और इसे जलाइए। ये किस संदर्भ में कहा गया, और ललितेश जी ने यूं ही इस कविता का चयन नहीं कर लिया होगा। कैलाश जी ने एक बार उदाहरण दिया ये अनुभव आनंद का, इंजीनियर हैं पेशे से, और मुझे बहुत ये उनमें संभावना दिखी कि उन्होंने नायडा, कैटफर्ड, जितने भी पाश्चात्य अनुवाद चिंतक हैं, सबके अनुवाद सिद्धांत को पिरोते हुए उन्होंने अपने वक्तव्य में अनुवाद की धारणा की ललितेश जी ने क्या क्या किया होगा। ये बधाई अनुभव आनंद जी, आप इंजीनियरिंग में हैं और इंजीनियरिंग के लोगों की बड़ी जरूरत है अनुवाद के क्षेत्र में। भास्कर जी ने जैकबसन सहित कई विद्वानों का नाम लेते हुए ये तो कहा कि पूल ऑफ ट्रांसलेटर होना चाहिए, लेकिन जिस तरह के ट्रांसलेशन का ये की प्रैक्टिस और तस्करी मैथिली में चल रही है, उसमें भास्कर जी थोड़ा मुश्किल है। आपको इन्हीं 3 अनुवादक जो आज आपके सामने हैं, और आप जो कुछ नई पीढ़ी के लोग हैं, ये स्निग्धा जी हैं, ललित जी हैं, आप भास्कर जी, आप स्वयं हैं, अनुभव आनंद है, इन लोगों से इन सब सिद्धांतों के आधार पर आपको भरोसा करना होगा कि अनुवाद शायद आगे बेहतर हो सकेगा। मगर जैकबसन के सहारे से भास्कर जी ने जो कहा कि अनुवाद कार्य, बहुत सारे जैकबसन समेत और सारे कई लोगों का नाम लिया, और कई सारे लोग अपना अपना अनुभव बताते हैं कि अनुवाद कार्य असंभव है, कविता का अनुवाद तो और भी असंभव है। मगर मैं आप लोगों को याद दिलाना चाहता हूं कि गेटे ने बहुत पहले कह दिया कि आने वाले समय में विश्व साहित्य राष्ट्रीय साहित्य को विस्थापित कर देगा। और आजकल जितने भी साहित्य लिखे जाते हैं अपनी अपनी भाषा में, हर कोई उसको राष्ट्रीय साहित्य कहता है, मगर ऐसा है नहीं। राष्ट्रीय साहित्य वही है जो दूसरी भाषा में जाकर अपनी भाषा की संस्कृति, शब्द और उसकी गरिमा को बचा कर रख पाता है, वही साहित्य राष्ट्रीय साहित्य है। तो अनुवाद कविता का कठिन जरूर है, मगर अनिवार्य भी है। और अनिवार्य इसलिए है कि हम जीवन में जो कुछ भी कर रहे हैं वह अनुवाद के कारण कर रहे हैं और अनुवाद कर रहे हैं। अपने चिंतन में उठे, अपनी चिंता किए हुए भावों का या तो शब्दों में अनुवाद या क्रियाओं में अनुवाद। हमने सोचा कि किसी से प्रेम करना है तो प्रेम करने चल पड़ते हैं, पीटना है तो पीटने चल पड़ते हैं, लिखना है तो लिखने बैठ जाते हैं। ये सब के सब हम अपने चिंतन का क्रिया में या शब्द में अनुवाद करते हैं। इसलिए भास्कर जी कविता या कि अनुवाद कविता का ही नहीं, किसी भी चीज का अनुवाद बहुत कठिन है। एक प्रसंग का जोड़ता हूं कि बाबा यात्री की एक उनका उपन्यास है एक पारो में, वो पारो जो नायिका है उसने कहीं ये बार बार जाकर घर के लोग देखते हैं कि खीरा का बीज जो डाला गया जमीन में वो अंकुर क्यों नहीं रहा है। रोज घर के स्वामी या मालकिनी जो है वो भेजता है किसी को, जाके देखो खीरा अंकुरा कि नहीं। 10-15 दिन के बाद घर के सभी बड़े बुजुर्ग बैठ करके चर्चा करते हैं कि खीरा का बीज डाला किसने था जमीन में, तो किसी ने कहा पारो। इसके बाद कहानी में थोड़ा सा पॉज आता है और अगले पॉज के बाद जो अगला प्रसंग है वो है कि पारो के विवाह की तैयारी शुरू हो गई। आप इस पॉज को दुनिया की किसी भी भाषा में इसका अनुवाद नहीं किया जा सकता है कि खीरा के बीज रोपने, पारो के रोपने और खीरा का बीज नहीं उगने और पारो के विवाह होने, इस तीनों का रिश्ता क्या है, ये केवल मैथिली में हो सकता है। दुनिया की हाँ कुछ यूपी बिहार के कुछ और भी क्षेत्रों में ये सब प्रसंग हैं। तो ये चीज जो इस तरह की संस्कृतियां जहां पर है, इन सब चीजों को आप सोच लीजिए कि गद्य का भी अनुवाद कितना कठिन है। आप राग दरबारी की बात करें कि उसकी बाछें खिल गई, या ट्रेन आज रंगनाथ को बड़ा गुस्सा, रंगनाथ को आज ट्रेन ने धोखा दिया, 2 घंटा ही देर से आई और चली गई। अब सोचिए कि ये इसका अनुवाद जब आप अंग्रेजी में करेंगे तो अंग्रेजी के जो पाठक हैं उनको कहाँ से ये सब समस्या आएगी। आप विलियम जोन्स का अनुवाद देख लीजिए शकुंतला का, जब उन्होंने किया है तो शकुंतला के चेहरे से पसीने की बूंदें विलियम जोन्स ने हटा दी है। ये सारी चीजें सभी, गद्य में भी दिक्कत है, पद्य में भी दिक्कत है, मगर अनुवाद जरूरी है। इसके लिए हमें अनुवाद की जरूरत क्या है, इस पर जाने की जरूरत है। इसलिए ये हम मानते हैं, हम सबको मानना चाहिए कि अनुवाद स्थगित पाठ को पुनर्जीवन देकर बृहत्तर पाठक से परिचय कराता है, और यह परिचय किसी भी भाषा के साहित्य के विकास के लिए बहुत ही जरूरी बात है। कमियां इस किताब में नहीं होंगी ऐसा मैं नहीं मानता, क्योंकि जो काम करता है कमी उसी में होती है। हम आशा करें कि ललितेश जी से या विद्यानंद जी से या तनुश्री से कि अगला जो संग्रह आए कोई इस तरह का, वो इसमें हर कवि या कवित्री की एक एक कविता ही नहीं हो, एक एक कवि की कम से कम 10-10 कविताएं हों, ताकि एक कवि के बारे में आइडिया बनाने में, एक धारणा बनाने में पाठक को सुविधा हो। और एक बात यह भी है कि जिस तरह हम कई लोगों को कहते हैं कि भाई आप जर्मनी नहीं गए तो क्या आप जर्मनी को ग्लोब से मिटा देंगे? आपने जिन्होंने मैथिली साहित्य नहीं पढ़ा, मैथिली भाषा नहीं पढ़ी, उनको यह कहने के बजाय कि मैथिली में ये सब होता है, आप देख लीजिए इसी संग्रह में चंदा झा से शुरू होकर कामिनी तक कविताएं खत्म होती है, मगर जब मैथिली भाषा के जो ये विकास की प्रक्रिया देखेंगे तो आपको विद्यापति के पास जाना होगा, और विद्यापति के बाद बीच में मनबोध तक 18वीं शताब्दी तक आकर बीच में मैथिल सारे एकदम सरपट सुनना हो गए। सारे लोग शब्द के चमत्कार में लग गए। वो मनबोध आए तो फिर से उन्होंने एक ये राज्याश्रय के विरुद्ध भी जाकर कुछ काम किया। मनबोध के बाद चंदा झा आए, फिर बीच में कविता कहाँ रजनी सजनी में चली गई, जब राजकमल चौधरी ने आकर कहा कि कविता नैथिक नखसिक श्रृंगार रति विपरीतक उंटल ग्रीवाहार, कविता थिक जीवनक जय घोष। 1941 ईस्वी में जब बाबा यात्री की कविता आई कविक स्वप्न, जिसमें उन्होंने कहा कि उठा कवि तू दाहक ललकारा गिरी शिखर पर पथिक दल चढ़ते करे, और जब उन्होंने पारो लिखा तो सारे मैथिल उनका सिर फोड़ने के लिए तैयार थे। हरिमोहन झा को की फजीहत करने के लिए सारे लोग तैयार थे कि ये मिथिला की संस्कृति को नष्ट कर रहे हैं। राजकमल चौधरी का स्वरगंधा आया तो सारे कीर्तन भजन लिखने वाले कवियों ने दुर्गंधा कहना शुरू कर दिया। तो मैथिली के कवियों को भी, लेखकों को भी, अनुवादकों को भी मिथिलांचल की इन समस्याओं से भी जूझना पड़ता आ रहा है। और ये ज्यों ही इससे कोई आगे निकल के आना चाहते हैं, कुछ करना चाहते हैं, तो उसमें ले दे करके कभी टपक जाते हैं। अब वही राजनीति शुरू हो जाती है कि इसमें केवल ब्राह्मण हैं, इसमें केवल कायस्थ हैं। ठीक है, ब्राह्मण है, अनुवादक क्या करें? दलितों के नाम से स्वयं लिखकर अनुवाद करें। जब दलितों के यहाँ मिथिला में शिक्षा ही नहीं है, तो अब जब शिक्षा बढ़ी है तो कुछ लोग आ रहे हैं, कुछ लोग लिख रहे हैं, जिसमें बिलट पासवान, विहंगम, तारानंद वियोगी, ये सारे बहुत सारे अच्छे, ये महेंद्र राम, बहुत सारे लोग हैं जिसने बहुत अच्छा काम किया है, कर रहे हैं। मगर दुर्योग है कि वे महेंद्र राम ने कविता नहीं लिखी। तो अब तारानंद वियोगी की कविता ली है ललितेश जी ने। स्त्रियां जितनी कविता लिख रही हैं वे सब हैं। स्वयं ललितेश जी की पीढ़ी में एक भी कवित्री नहीं है। इनके जस्ट पहले की पीढ़ी में 2 लेखिकाएं हैं, शेफालिका वर्मा और उषा किरण खान। मेरी पीढ़ी में सिर्फ 2 कवित्री हैं। एक तो गुजर गई अब, ज्योत्सना चंद्रम और सुष्मिता पाठक। अब हम क्या करें? हम जब अनुवाद करने लगे तो हम किसी स्त्री के नाम से स्वयं कविता लिखें? ये सब सामाजिक विकास की प्रक्रिया है। और यहाँ गोरख पांडे थे, उन्होंने कहा था समाजवाद हे बबुआ धीरे धीरे आई। मैथिली में ये सब कुछ इस सब तरह का जो राजनीतिकरण है ये संभव अभी तो नहीं है, धीरे धीरे होगा। और यह कोई साहित्य तो राजनीति है नहीं, नौकरी है नहीं कि उसमें इतना % स्त्री का होना जरूरी है, इतना % दलित का होना जरूरी है। जो लिख रहे हैं उसको साहित्य समझिए। और मुझे लगता है कि ललित ने जो जैसी कहानियां लिखी, जिनको मैं पतित पात्र के पावन कहानीकार कहते हैं, कि सारे पात्र उनके पतित चरित्र से शुरू होते हैं और कहानी का अंत होते होते वे पावन हो जाते हैं। ऐसा चमत्कार उनमें दिखाते हैं। बाबा यात्री की कविता में देख लीजिए, सारे के सारे जो उसी तरह के जीवन पर वे लिख रहे हैं। ये गठबिछनी हो चाहे फेकनी हो, जो जितनी भी कविताएं हैं, राजकमल चौधरी ने वही कुछ एकाध कविता का राजेश जी ने उदाहरण भी दिया। तो ये सब कुछ बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है और इस ढंग से सोचने की जरूरत है। और होते होते मैं भी बहुत देर बोल लिया और लगता है कि एक बार फिर से कैलाश जी को इस कार्य के लिए संपूर्ण मैथिली साहित्यिक व्यक्तियों की तरफ से कैलाश जी को बधाई दूं कि उन्होंने इस ललितेश जी के विशिष्ट कार्य का विशिष्ट रूप से उन्होंने संज्ञान लिया और इस पर इतने विशिष्ट वक्ताओं के विशिष्ट व्याख्यान, सब के सब ऐसे महत्वपूर्ण व्याख्यान हुए। मैं जितने सारे पैनलिस्ट हैं उन सब के साथ मुझे भी बैठने का कैलाश जी ने अवसर दिया, उन सब का की बात साझा करने का अवसर दिया, उन सबको और एक बड़े श्रोता समूह को कुछ कहने का अवसर दिया। मैं कैलाश जी का उनके प्रति आभार प्रकट करता हूं, उनकी संस्था के प्रति आभार प्रकट करता हूं और संपूर्ण कवि समुदाय की तरफ से और साहित्यिक समुदाय की तरफ से, अनुवाद पढ़ने वाले पाठकों की तरफ से आदरणीय भाई डॉक्टर ललितेश मिश्र जी, जिनके सामने में देखते देखते हमें कुछ साहित्यिक बुद्धि पता नहीं कितनी हुई है पर उसका विकास हुआ है। तो ललितेश जी से मैं सदा अनुग्रहित रहा हूँ, उनके प्रति आभार प्रकट करता हूँ। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आभार बर सुख सार पावल तू तीरे। आभार।
क्या बात है, क्या बात है। धन्यवाद सर, शब्द छोटे हो जाते हैं आपको धन्यवाद देने के लिए। और आपने इतना अधिकार दिया हुआ है कि कितना भी व्यस्त हो, कितनी भी व्यस्तता हो, और हमें कभी भी जरूरत होती है तो आप कभी नहीं कहते, कैलाश जी आपको मैं मना तो कर ही नहीं सकता, आप केवल देख लीजिए कि उस समय है कि नहीं। और आपकी उपस्थिति का बहुत बड़ा महत्व है। और जब आप बोल रहे थे तो जितने भी वक्तव्य थे उसका वाइब्रेशन, उसका निचोड़ आ रहा था। ये जो लग रहा था कि हंस वृत्ति आ रही है, हंस जो है दूध और पानी से दूध को निकाल के बांट रहा है, लोगों को दे रहा है। तो थैंक यू सो वेरी मच फ्रॉम द इंटरनल कोर ऑफ माई हार्ट फॉर योर प्रेजेंस एंड फॉर योर प्रेजेंटेशन, फॉर अंडरस्टैंडिंग द entire thing, the purpose behind organizing this particular deliberation was to tell the people, look, here is someone who has worked hard to translate the poetics of Mithila, the poems of Maithili literature, and we also know what he has done. And we should also encourage other people to come forward and translate more and more poems, prose, novels, and whatever the forms available in Maithili literature, so that the others know. कभी कभी हमारे पास लोग आते हैं, कहते हैं कि मैथिली लिटरेचर पे क्या है जो हमारे में नहीं है। फिर जब उनको हम कहते हैं तो उनको लगता है बट वी डोंट नो, यू पीपल डोंट ट्रांसलेट योर वर्क। तो इसलिए ये जो ट्रांसलेशन है, उस ट्रांसलेशन की बहुत बड़ी महत्ता है, जिन्हें जो है डॉक्टर ललितेश मिश्र ने किया है। तो अब आपने तो लगभग सभी समस्याओं का समाधान कर दिया है, सभी प्रश्नों का उत्तर देने का भी बहुत ही सुंदर प्रयास किया है। मैं प्रोफेसर ललितेश मिश्रा से कहूँगा कि 2 मिनट में अगर अपनी बात को संभाल लें, बिकॉज ये ऑलरेडी हम लोग 3 घंटे करीब पहुँच गए हैं, तो बहुत बड़ी खुशी होगी। सर आप वो कीजिए, अनम्यूट कीजिए अपने आप को, अनम्यूट कीजिए, अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ।
जी।
ओके, नाउ प्लीज स्टार्ट स्पीकिंग।
ओके, तो अगर अध्यक्ष की अनुमति हो तो मैं हिंदी में बोलूँ तो हो सकता है कि जो हम लोग पैनल में हैं उसके अलावे जो रीडर्स हैं या लिसनर्स हैं तो वो आसानी से बात को समझ पाएंगे। अध्यक्ष महोदय ने अपने भाषण में सारी बातों का और सारे आरोपों का बहुत ही चतुराई से उत्तर उन्होंने दिया है, इसीलिए आई डोंट थिंक दैट देयर वाज एनी नेसेसिटी टू एक्सप्लेन दोज एस्पेक्ट्स, particularly the charge that was leveled against the book that it smacked of literary Brahmanism। तो उसके संबंध में हम सिर्फ इतना ही कहना चाहते हैं कि had there been some alternative choices that could have been included in the book, but when we don't have any particular choice or alternative, what will you do? Where will you bring them? कहाँ से लाएंगे? आप जिस लिटरेरी ब्राह्मणिज्म की बात आप कर रहे हो, आप पहले तो ठीक ही मेरे कैलाश मिश्र जी ने भी बताया और नवीन जी ने भी, अध्यक्ष जी ने भी बताया कि मैथिली में
the technology is showing its strength, power, it is disturbing us again and again, so we are not able to connect.
ऐप जता कनेक्ट हो जाता है, एक 10-20 सेकंड दियो, लेकिन ये सब ये बात जे छै, मैं कैलाश जी ये जो, अच्छा हिंदी में ही कहता हूँ। अब देखिए कि अब नागार्जुन को कहाँ से आप ब्राह्मण, वैद्यनाथ मिश्र यात्री को यदि आप ब्राह्मण माने तो क्या ये तो उनका वो ब्राह्मण हुए या क्या हुए, ये उनके बस में तो था नहीं। उन्होंने जो लिखा कि वो जिस तरह से सारे ब्राह्मणिज्म की जितनी भी बखिया उधेरी उन्होंने, हरिमोहन झा ने जितनी बखिया उधेरी, हाँ आगे ललितेश जी।
फिर चले गए सर। आप बोलते रहिए सर, आप बोलते रहिए।
हाँ, तो वो जितनी बखिया इन लोगों ने उधेरी उसमें लोग यदि उनको ब्राह्मण माने, अब ये क्या दिक्कत है लोगों को? साहित्य होना चाहिए। फिर आगे ललित जी।
वो सर, वो जो फेकड़ी है उसका वो खाए छे ने पीबे छे बहते रहे छे सदरिकाल, की करवे के क्या बजाए बेटा भी बैठो तारी। अब ना जस्ट रिवेज
दे फेकनी कपलेसर जो टाका पैसा
जो के जो
तो
कपलेसर को जो घाट से बढ़िया भाग, यू नो दिस काइंड ऑफ, ये
सब अब उनको जी
सर कंटिन्यू, प्लीज कंटिन्यू सर।
सर मैं बोलूं?
हाँ जी
अध्यक्ष महोदय, मैं कुछ बताऊं?
जी 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 जी।
वो डिस्कनेक्शन के कारण थोड़ी परेशानी हो गई, तो वो मैं बता रहा था कि भाई जब हमारे पास में विकल्प ही नहीं है तो इस लिटरेरी ब्राह्मणिज्म का जो आरोप है इसको हम कैसे खत्म कर सकते हैं? इसके बावजूद भी जो हमारे पास उपलब्ध हैं, जैसे आपने तारानंद वियोगी जी की चर्चा की, जैसे डॉक्टर विभा कुमारी, उनको मैंने शामिल किया हुआ है, और बाकी लोग चूंकि कविता के क्षेत्र में अगर एक आध व्यक्ति और भी हैं तो वे हैं नहीं। दूसरी बात कि हमने ये जो रिजर्वेशन कोटे को ध्यान में मैंने नहीं रखा। मेरी जरूरत यह थी कि मैथिली साहित्य में, आधुनिक मैथिली साहित्य में क्या कुछ लिखा जा रहा है वो विश्व स्तरीय लेखन के समकक्ष है या नहीं, या उससे प्रतिस्पर्धा कर पाने की क्षमता वो कविताएं या वो साहित्य रखती हैं कि नहीं। इसीलिए उसको ध्यान में रखते हुए मैंने वैसे ही कवियों का, बिना उनके जाति का, बिना उनके समुदाय का, बिना उनके अवदानों को ध्यान में रखे हुए यह लिखा कि वैसी प्रवृत्तियां जो आधुनिक प्रवृत्तियां विश्व साहित्य में लक्षित और प्रकट होती हैं, वैसी प्रवृत्तियां जिन मैथिली कविताओं में है उनको इसमें संग्रहित करके और दुनिया के सामने में उजागर किया जाए, ताकि दुनिया के पाठक इस बात को समझ सकें कि जिस मैथिली भाषा से को सुनने और देखने से उन्हें अब तक परहेज रहा है, वे इन कविताओं के अनुवाद को माध्यम से देखकर उसके सौंदर्य को, उसकी चेतना को, उसकी संवेदना को समझ सके। इसीलिए ऐसा कुछ सोच करके लिटरेरी ब्राह्मणिज्म दिखाने की हैसियत से या इच्छा से इस संग्रह का चयन नहीं किया गया, बल्कि विश्व को यह दिखाने के लिए कि मैथिली कविताओं की कौन सी ऐसी खूबियां हैं जो विश्व स्तरीय साहित्य के समान है और सादृश्य रखती है, उसका परिचय लोग प्राप्त करें। हाँ, यदि अगर मुझे इन आरोपों के खंडन में सिर्फ वैसी ही रचनाओं को जहां कहीं से लेकर लोगों के सामने में रखना होता, तो फिर हम विश्व स्तरीय रचना के साथ अपने सादृश्य को दिखाने में कदाचित सफल नहीं होते। ठीक ही अध्यक्ष महोदय ने कहा कि अब जागृति बढ़ी है, लोग इस क्षेत्र में, साहित्य सृजन के क्षेत्र में आ रहे हैं, और जिस दिन वह स्थिति बन जाएगी कि वे पर्याप्त संख्या में हमारे पास होंगे और उनके पास गुणवत्ता अगर उनकी रचनाओं में होगी तो वे भी संग्रह में लिए जाएंगे। और ऐसा कुछ जानबूझ करके तो हम लोगों ने कुछ ऐसे संवैधानिक जो स्थितियां हैं उसको सोच करके तो साहित्य लिखा भी नहीं जाता, लिखते भी नहीं, लिखा भी नहीं शायद कभी भविष्य में जाएगा। तो बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और कैलाश बाबू को विशेष रूप से इसीलिए कि इतनी बड़ी चर्चाओं का दौर उन्होंने अपने प्लेटफॉर्म से जो आज किया है, कदाचित शायद पहले मैथिली के प्रसंग में तो नहीं ही हुआ होगा या नहीं ही हुआ है, इसीलिए उनको विशेष रूप से धन्यवाद देना चाहिए। ललित जी, स्निग्धा जी, तनुश्री जी, अध्यक्ष महोदय, विद्यानंद जी, पाठक जी, इन सारे लोगों ने जिस ढंग से इस कविता संग्रह को समझने की कोशिश की, उसकी व्याख्या की, उसका विश्लेषण किया, उसकी विवेचना की और उसके प्रसंग में जो विचार व्यक्त किए हुए हैं उसके लिए मैं साधुवाद देता हूं, उनकी प्रशंसा करता हूं। एक प्रश्न पाठक जी ने वो सामाजिक शास्त्र के दृष्टिकोण से उठाया कि मैथिली साहित्य में ये आधुनिकता क्या है, व्हाट आर दी modern tendencies that can be gauged in Maithili poetry. तो अब तो समय का अभाव है, किसी दूसरे दिन अगर मौका लगेगा तो मैं बताऊंगा कि ये मॉडर्न टेंडेंसीज ये कैसे अलग है और सब जो आधुनिक भारतीय भाषाएं हैं उसमें अधुनातन प्रवृत्तियों का किस प्रकार से अभिव्यक्ति हुआ और मैथिली में किस प्रकार से हुआ है और पाश्चात्य साहित्य में भी जिस प्रकार से उसकी अभिव्यक्ति हुई है उसके कितने समानांतर मैथिली में अभिव्यक्त आधुनिक प्रवृत्तियों का उल्लेख हुआ है। इससे मैं बाद में कभी बताऊंगा। बहुत बहुत आप लोगों का आभार कि कम से कम पाइट पोएजी पर इतनी बृहद चर्चा हुई, विश्लेषणात्मक चर्चा हुई और इन चर्चाओं के माध्यम से कदाचित अगर मैथिली की खूबियों को पाठकों के बीच में जाकर समझने का मौका मिलेगा तो मुझे हार्दिक प्रसन्नता होगी और कैलाश जी को कितना भी धन्यवाद दूं तो वो कम ही पड़ेगा। आभार, धन्यवाद।
So, thank you. This is now over. And हमें लगता है कि हम लोगों को एक बार फिर से पढ़ना चाहिए, फिर से समझना चाहिए और ऐसे लोग जो काम कर रहे हैं उनके प्रति हमारी सही निष्ठा यही है कि हम उनको पढ़े ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा और जो दूसरी समुदाय के लोग हैं, जो अदर्स हैं, दूसरी भाषा के लोग हैं, उनको बताएं कि ये रही हमारी literary property. Thank you so very much for joining us.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।